What's up, piglets and ducks? I assume that's what our audience is tonight. Welcome back to Korean Contenders. It is week 4. We are hitting day 2 now. And I'm, of course, Matt Pixie Carroll. Joining me here, having had a lot of piglets and ducks in his time, is Kevin AVRL Walker. And we've got some interesting matches coming up tonight.
I haven't seen a piglet or a duck in, couldn't even tell you. Must have been years.
A duck?
A very long time.
Ducks aren't uncommon.
I don't know. They're pretty uncommon where I am, except for the stuffed duck that my flatmate's dog is torn apart. I'm sure she wishes it was a real duck.
What about Peking duck? Have you seen that? Like roast duck? Seen that recently?
Not a lot. Not really.
No?
I haven't been outside in about 5 years. So
that makes sense.
Now, staying indoors, safe and sound, and well and truly entertained, or at least about to be, is day 2 of week 4. So we are now pretty deep into regular season. Finishing up week 4 this evening as well, so 2 more matches coming up to play as well. We had 2 great matches last night, pretty decisive games overall. One of them was not even a 3-0, so that's something to celebrate about. Maybe tonight we'll have some other games that are not going to end in 3-0, so who knows? I mean, fingers crossed.
Yep, the bar is really that low. But I mean, in all seriousness, in terms of the games we actually have up, like again, we're looking at, you know, matches where you can, like, there is a probable outcome that you can quite confidently say is going to happen. The questions are in the specifics, and it's all about what form the teams are actually in. Let's go ahead and just remind ourselves of roughly where we are, as we said, kind of week 4 of the 5 weeks of that regular season. So 1 more week of the regular season after this one, at which point all of the teams will have played, or every other team in their group. We will then take the top 4 from each group, so eliminating the 5th place team in each group, moving those forward into the play-ins and play-offs. First 2 seeds go straight to the playoffs. Second 2 seeds, that is to say 3 and 4, will have to play through the play-in tournament to earn their spot in the playoffs.
We're getting very close to deciding exactly where all those teams fall now. I mean, last couple of matches to be played in terms of today and then also next week and the last week will determine exactly which teams get directly seeded into playoffs and which teams will have to go through play-ins, which is still a better offering than the teams that end up in number 5 here, who will be eliminated from the season altogether. And you can start to see that teams on top obviously feeling pretty good about their chances, and teams at the bottom not so much. And a couple of all those teams still yet to be decided in terms of their last few remaining matches. Incendia Evolution still 2 games to play through. JNGK just the 1. The Starlight game with 2 matches left to play as well.
Pretty straightforward. Let's go ahead and take a look at what we've actually got lined up for tonight. Obviously, kicking things off, we've got Talon versus Incendia Evolution. I talked about the sort of the expected results. Look, Incendia, they've actually got a window. They've got a potential to not finish 5th in their, in their group. It's going to be a tough ask, no doubt, but this is probably not the team they're going to pick up that win against. Talon are on an absolute tear. They had a bit of a wacky match, actually, just the other week, Talon versus WGS Phoenix. That was a bit of a peculiar one in that it seemed kind of close, but it also felt like an amount of that was Talon maybe just not quite playing to their fullest potential. One can still assume that that potential exists, and should they need to, they can just kind of pull that out tonight. BM Hawk versus Starlight is going to be maybe a little bit more touch and go, indeed, for both teams. BM Hawk, we kind of shoe in as being the 3rd place finisher in that group, but that's not necessarily guaranteed, and it's definitely a reachable team from Starlight's perspective. So BM Hawk, they really need to have their guard up for this particular match if they want to secure that seed and not risk sliding down through the standings.
And BM Hawk, you know, there's a chance they still manage to get the 4th seed if they do lose here, but really, you know, seeding does matter, as we saw in the graphics a little bit earlier on. So winning this game tonight gives them a 2-2 record, which, if the kind of seedings go down, cascading the way we expect them to, so for example, your 1st seed team is probably 4-0, 2nd seed 3-1, 2-2, 1-3, and then 0-4 respectively. 2-2 very specifically gets you directly in the middle in that 3rd seed, which is play-ins worthy and also the best seed in play-ins possible.
Exactly. So with all that kind of being laid out, let's go ahead and zero in on that initial matchup, Incendia Evolution versus Talon. And it feels like it's been a hot minute since we've seen Talon, actually. I think it's been about 2 weeks now. I think actually the last time we saw them was in that match I was just talking about, where they played up against... and I said it, and thank you, WGS Phoenix. It just completely went off my mind for a second. And yeah, it was weird. It was a 3-0, but it was a weird 3-0. I kind of want to see a cleaner game out of them tonight.
And that's the thing, right? Talon Esports probably will have a comfortable game versus Incendia Evolution, being that Incendia Evolution did also lose to WGS, and you know, WGS seemed like a team that should be making play-ins overall in the seasonal strength. Talon Esports, though, undefeated so far, and actually they haven't even taken a map loss to memory, just going through their games now. Nope, completely clean, correct. 6-0. Spick and span over there. And that record can and maybe will continue tonight. I mean, the roster is entirely stacked. They've been favoring mostly dive so far in the season. In fact, they've been favoring enough of a dive that one of the key aspects of this Talon roster so far is that they've been playing probably more Genji than most teams, courtesy of Ado, and a lot of fire as well. Again, courtesy of Ado. He's the guy bringing those types of picks through for the squad, and it's a bit of a different look compared to some of the other teams, especially yesterday when we saw, you know, a lot of Orisa gameplay, and that was coming through from the specific side of who was doing a lot of that. It was actually WGS plays a lot of that, so funny enough, that kind of matchup was where Talon was versus WGS 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, completely on the mark there. So, look, again, we're expecting great things out of Talon. We have been for quite some time. I mean, this is the team that like just barely fell short in their first ever season of Korean Contenders back on season 1. So it feels like almost this entire season for them is just like this formality before they can get some kind of rematch, or at the very least get a second shot at claiming the title that they barely failed to capture. And just to remind you how that actually worked, obviously with last season's format, it was 2 best-of-5s, and if there was a draw, it went to a single map tiebreaker. Talon lost that single map tiebreaker. That is how that played out. It was straight up 1 map difference. And you could easily look at how the 2 teams played across the 2 nights and just as easily see it going the other way. So Talon are wanting that comeback. And this is just kind of another speed bump for the road for them. Not even a particularly serious one. Slow down, take it easy, get past it, and continue straight down the racetrack. Incendia Evolution, on the other hand, have 3-player portraits. Woo!
3 Flaming Swords. I mean, one player that we are missing on the starting lineup is Top Dragon, who debuted last week. And also played a lot of Genji. So if that matchup happens again, as in Evolution play Top Dragon, obviously Ado is going to go to it. Could actually see a Genji versus Genji matchup, which is something that is kind of rare in this kind of region as well, because most teams have stayed away from that. Most teams have been playing a mixture of dive and Orisa bunker. But I think these 2 teams might be 2 of the ones that will be favoring more of that dive.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we actually saw pretty decent things out of Incendia in their last match as well. Like, it felt doable, right? It felt potentially winnable. Just weren't quite able to get it over the line. I think it ended up being a 3-1 result in the end, but a quite competitive one across the board. So, again, I don't know that this is the team they're going to be able to do it against, but those shining gems are still there. Every match they play is all just about refining things. Realistically, their opportunity to maybe still squeak into the group comes up, if I'm not mistaken, in their last week of play.
Let's get the ball rolling then. Map number 1 here, coming through on University. Straight out the get will be attack on towards the signature Zarya. It's in the Evolution. Orisa to start things out with as well. So Nano play from Vigilante, that's the name of the game. Ado straight away onto that Genji, alternative win condition for the Nano as well.
Talon going for the double bubble. Running Winston Zarya. I do like the Zarya in general. Kellen is also one of those players that, you know, still quite prefers the Winston. It's not that he only plays it and won't play Wrecking Ball. He just does quite like playing the Winston, so with the nano boost potentially this back, that's a good bit. And a lot of ult charge, huge bionade. Oh man, look at the cleanup from Ado. I mean, that's quick as a whip, right? Just goes to show the prowess. You know, a couple of members on IE are low, huge bionade comes down, instant conversion from Ado.
Pretty fast coming through now. Intercast, no change so far in terms of where their comp is going towards. Incendia Evolution have swapped up their DPS, at least it'll be Hanzo Tracer instead of the McCree and Soldier that we started out on. Obviously there isn't going to be an Orisa matchup, so i.e. there'll be a misread in that regard. We're expecting to face up against another bunker, not the case. Looking towards Frong to find this early window, 81% and counting.
Yeah, looking pretty solid, but in all fairness, Talon, they have their own go button tools. It's going to be Primal Rage very quick from Talon. Looking to get a corner trap up here on a Peach as well. Will live for a few seconds longer thanks to the Immortality Field, but the damage has long since been done. It just drew too much attention back there. Obviously, Frong with the Immortality Field in front of the fight, i.e. we're just flattened.
And now there's just, you know, more ultimates coming on for Talon Esports. They can nano blade this fight as well if they want to, which is Nano Kellen. All the other ultimates have basically started to come online. It's 50% no contest from Incendia Evolution. All they have to work with is the amp metric so far. It will be an important ultimate, but if you are Talon, as soon as you see the window coming down, you are going to nanoblade this.
Oh, look at that. Straight up finds the immortality field as well, so everyone is easy pickings for him. Even going to get the extra damage onto Inocas in the end because he got thrown with the dash. So, again, just super clean stuff. Very ultimate efficient. Just the two used in that fight, just the primal and the one earlier. Now 70% for Talon.
Now you have Incendia Evolution looking over towards Supercharge. When that gets dropped down, Talon will go for the Grav Dragon combo. That could just be the last fight done and dusted here, as we're at about the 80% mark. IE are going to be the ones dictating the pace of this next fight, and Talon would love for this to be slowed down as much as possible. Talon will not pull the trigger early. They don't need to. They will go now.
All right, here we go. The Supercharger is sort of the main tool here for Incendia. Charge on attack is a big threat. Staying alive for a surprisingly long time, but not quite long enough. Like you said, now no grab available. So Talon actually fighting from the back foot here. Kellen getting brought low. The rally trying to rescue the team here. Vigilante shy of a nano boost. Kellen's actually going to live here, but he's saying dies on his way out. So IE now actually a solid chunk ahead. Attack may be able to come back in with a last-ditch grab, but with these members getting forced off here, losing Ardo, I think Talon, they just need to let this one go, wait for some respawners, and come back in when they're ready.
Rare miss execution from Talon Esports there as well. I mean, I think Attack was looking for a flank on that Graviton Surge, and Talon Esports, unlikely to survive this fight. Kellen's instantly melted. So Talon Esports still won't be able to find this grab just yet. In fact, they're being farmed up pretty consistently, pretty comfortably for IE, who have a lot of catch-up to do themselves.
Good to get the additional reset on Attack there, actually, because it would have just charged up a bit of charge off Kellen, the defensive bubble that would have gone down onto him and probably won an attack himself. So IE also just get to extend out a little bit of the percentage here, try charge up some other ultimates as well.
So you see this nano on towards Kellen. Yeah, here it is, coming straight in from now.
Straight in. The crowd controller's there for a hot second, but he's still going to be able to primal. Finds the Peach immediately. Pressure getting brought low. Inocas is dead. Pressure has to just self-destruct here. Obviously, one part to reset the mech, but also this is final fight now. Talon, they're going to be able to re-grab at 99%. They've already cleared IE way off the point. I don't think Inocas is even going to get back inside Winter's ball. Actually, Winter's maybe bought them a second for that, but I don't think anyone's realistically getting close, and there you have it.
I don't even just AFK with the blade there. Talon know they got it under lock. It's one grab for the entire submap, though, which doesn't feel great. And again, we draw our eyes back to the situation when Talon couldn't quite clean up the pivotal fight that would have had the 100-0. Obviously, they went for the flanking Graviton Surge. Attack got found out. Pressure came in for, as the name would describe it, pressure on that Zarge and allow the grab to come on through, and eventually Attack goes down and they have to reset. So now, moving over to submap number 2, will be Gardens coming through. All for Inocas, ball for Kellen. Same on both ends. We trace this for Heesang and Winter. And it's going to be a complete mirror match on both ends.
Cool. All right. I dig it. Just goes to show, by the way, obviously, Kellen doesn't force the Winston. It's just something he likes to play and is quite good at. Obviously, on the ball when it is necessary. Faster to the point, I will say, but actually the hack does go over to Uena, so one little pickup there for Incendia. Talon looking to make the rotation towards the point now, but IE are actually in the better position for it.
I mean, both are actually going for this health pack play. I mean, that makes sense because you have double Sombras, and both Sombras would like to have the initial health pack. One of them is down early.
Very nice find by Inocas. That wasn't even where my eye was, actually. I was looking at Attack, who was getting quite low. Uena as well at one particular point. Inocas doesn't quite live in that little bit of dive there, so that does give Kellen a little bit of freedom of movement. Attack is still not in the mech, but he's about to get back in it at this rate. Winter getting driven low as well. Ardo's going to be back with the team by now, so even as IE get the points, Talon are able to rotate on it soon to contest anyway.
Well, check this out though. Uena's on 71% and counting up, so they have a very fast EMP timing here that Talon do not. Talon are going to have this pulse bomb available, alright? And Uena's going to get reset. This is Ardo's opportunity now to do his own catch up. So 20% is the difference between the two. It's had potential. No, I thought the pulse bomb got cancelled, but it still lands. Okay,
that's at least a 1-for-1. Now pressure getting demexed as well. Should just be Talon able to clean up the rest of these members, even finding Winter very nice ones. That brings Ardo into the lead with that EMP charge. The other thing it also did was it bought Vigilante time to guarantee the Transcendence before Uena's EMP, and he has now got that.
Strong will be working on his very quickly here, 14% away. IE can maybe try and stall this one out just a little bit here. They know where Ardo is, where I'm surprised Ardo is even revealing himself during an EMP setup. Uena's will be looking for the same thing, going invis for the setup play. That is a stick that does not end up in a kill.
Yeah, not quite going to be able to do it. EMP out first from Ardo. It's only really found pressure. It's pretty low value. They might just be able to force the fight win, though. The minefield down, Kellen taking some heat, but it's one-man disadvantage for Winter being dead. That EMP from Uena, not the hottest. Vigilante barely living there, will be able to pop the Transcendence. So both the EMPs not exactly getting huge value. Talon just kind of out-fragging at this point in time. Will get one onto Vigilante. Now Choring as well with the backline dead. Talon looking a little bit worse for the Weds, to be sure. Incendia should be able to clean off the rest of these members with attack now down, unless he's saying or Ardo absolutely fries Incendia. This is a pretty handy fight win from them.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with the EMPs. We expected them to do poorly, considering it was going to be double support ultimates from both sides. Rally's running the entire time, even though Vigilante was caught, the armor was just buffing them up. So neither of the EMPs were going to be able to do that much at the end of the day. It was Winter going down for IE that caused a 5v6 for Talon. Still have the numbers advantage here. IE have the cap. They have reached the 50% here as well.
Yeah.
Very low ultimates on both ends. When you see if Heesang can do something.
That was Heesang's recall just then, so they do have to wait a hot tick, but no pressure. Actually caught out in the cold. Nice stick onto a Peach as well. Pokes his head out. Heesang sees an opportunity. Doesn't even need the recall to make it happen. That trade that Winter picks up does not mean anything, as Talon have a decent man advantage here. Actually, Frong picking up one late in the day, but without the tanks here, it's just Uena with very little behind it.
Both Uena and Ardo looking towards that next EMP. Now this time there's not going to be the same support ultimates up, at least in terms of the Transcendences. Choring and Peach are very close to the rallies, especially Choring on the Talon side of things. We're approaching a situation where it will be 69 on both ends. Heesang down. It's going to screw Talon's timing a little bit. They'd love to go for an EP. They will still go for it.
Trying. All right, it's both EMPs committed, in fact, but Choring already had the rally running, so Vigilante's going to be fine. Frong's Transcendence has now run out as Winter still super low, only barely staying up thanks to the rally. Frong not so lucky with the environmental now Peach as well, as Choring actually catches one with the whip shot, even finding Winter's pulse bomb in the mix. Pressure takes a dive. He sees the writing on the wall there. Now final fight territory for Talon.
And that's even with Ardo dropping a 1-0 man EMP as well. It could have been a solo onto Enocast, but couldn't quite tell because the Discord was overlaid on top. Final fight coming on through now, 94% and counting up. IE need to go in straight away with this minefield from Enocast.
Ooh, Ardo gets spotted, but it's not like they can do a whole lot about it right in that particular moment. Look at this, trying to force the fight off to the side of the point. Enocast does go straight down with the minefield, but Talon are actually the ones setting the pace here. They don't mind if the point goes over. They'd rather get the fight win. They've already found Frong. Great trade onto Kellen. That's super important for IE. This also drags the fight back towards the point itself. Enocast is low, and they only have a Peach healing everyone up. Pressure not going to get back in the mech. That's big. It's the self-destruct finds no kills either. Now Winter down, and Talon looking to more or less just out-frag their way through this final fight. A Peach's shield broken, falls back. Talon are going to scoop up another.
A lot closer than expected. I mean, that's even considering no submite was given over to IE, but you gotta say on Gardens, at least, you know, there was a lot of counter-capping on both ends there. Incendia Evolution reaching, you know, above 60%, so decent amount of fights won. Good mirror matchup that we had over there as well. It was really looking over towards Talon's last two fights, where they got a lot of frags in a row. They had the, you know, Kellen knocking a few members off the side of the edge as well. Ardo doesn't quite hit a really good EMP, but seems to not have mattered. You have a situation where Heesang lands an opening stick as well, so everything mechanically on an individual level that needed to happen for the side of Talon went through pretty fast. And in that final fight, I mean, Talon already had the advantage. They had the space to control. You need to see a very late, but also important touch that had to come through from Incendia Evolution, and they couldn't quite connect the team fight as well as, you know, main tank. It's got to be mines on the point. The rest of the team were fighting around the health pack outside.
And that honestly feels like where a lot of the difference is right now. It's just that Talon, straight up on an individual basis, have the capacity to outplay Incendia without too much difficulty either. That isn't to discredit Incendia, who actually did like bring out a very competitive showing. Like, they were genuinely winning some serious fights there. They brought the point to a lead at one point as well, off the back of a couple of successful engages. So, like, credit to Incendia where it's due. Like, they are playing decently. They still kind of need to kick it up a notch for one thing, but even then, like, we know that Talon can play even far better than they are right now. It's not like they're not doing that because they don't have to. It's more just like, if the game isn't like, you don't need to be super tight on macro and things like that. And even then, like, just the individual prowess, the individual playmaking coming out of these players, I think would be enough to steer them quite cleanly through even a really serious threat on this particular night.
So Numbani next up to play here is all expecting that Talon will just maintain the exact same type of play style they have been so far in the entire season. It's another opportunity for Ardo to be on the Genji. More nano gameplay to come on through as well. So that all should remain pretty consistent for the Talon side. Incendia Evolution possibly have the opportunity to change things up. They were quite keen to play the Orisa on the defense, well, not the defense, but on the University submap there. Also, the ability of doing that in Umbani is pretty high. I mean, Havana will be even more so. So, moving on for the rest of the series here, I can definitely see Incendia Evolution leaning heavier in that side. They also do have, by the way, have subs. I don't know if they'll actually sub anybody in, but they've got a pretty massive roster. So, we did see Top Dragon coming through in the previous week. We do see that Pressure's in now, and Pressure is a new member coming in for Incendia Evolution. So, replacing, I believe it was Frody, who's been the off-tank so far for this team. There's like 5 DPSs on the side as well. So we've seen Winter, we've seen Uena. We haven't seen as much of Exceed lately. I don't think he played last week. Shock comes in to play the Hanzo, and Top Dragon has been, you know, like a Genji projectile player also on the Tracer. So there's a lot of options available for Incendia Evolution.
And Top Dragon really impressed as well, just for what it's worth, when we did see him the other week. So that may be a thing. I'm not saying they're guaranteed to play him because he's just a better player than their current DPS. It's more just that he was a bit of a highlight when he was on the field. So I would quite like to see him again, if nothing else. And yeah, Numbani, as you kind of mentioned, the Orisa potential to come out here. So we'll have to see what Incendia choose to do in terms of substitutions. Talon, on the other hand, I am expecting no subs, funnily enough.
Unless they want to give Kane some game time, but at this rate, you know, Talon Esports 6-0 map record in the season, looking for a 9-0 if possible. If they get really comfortable, maybe 2 maps deep, maybe they get a 2-0 here, Kane could come in for attack. See a little bit of a change up. Biggest question for me will be if attack remains, I say remain, but if he will start on the Zarya or not. Obviously did that on the University map. Went back over towards Diva for our second sub map on Gardens. Yeah, here it is. It's going to be Top Dragon in, Winter out. It's going to be Talon staying the course so far and defending with a Winston double bubble team composition with Ardo starting on towards the Hanzo, which is a reasonable pick considering that IE have a good course to maybe go towards the Orisa. We did also see, by the way, that YesACC on the same defense opted for a fire. That is also within Ardo's capability, but Talon are not going to do that to start with.
All right. Kellen's on a Winston. I'm a happy man. I'm not gonna lie. That's like my snap assessment of this. Kellen's on Winston. I'm enjoying myself already, and I like this composition from Talon in general as well. The main thing, obviously, is there's the risk reward of the Zarya. If it's excuse me, obviously, if you're on the defense and attack dies already, there's a little bit of a potential problem if you're not getting trades. But if attack can just get rolling, then it just makes the nut tough to crack.
And a Winston for IE here as well. It's going to be Hanzo and Tracer, so equal DPS on both ends. The only difference here is going to be the Zarya in towards the Diva being played by Precious. That's remained the same since our last meeting. The Baronet does land onto Vigilante. Don't mind that Top Dragon dies here. Yeah, it's a little bit of slowdown for Top Dragon, but the Peach's Nano is really the key thing. So Top Dragon will respawn. We're still just waiting for Nano.
And he is well ahead of Vigilante as well by a factor of about 10 to 15 percentage points, depending on the second at which you go ahead and take a look. By the way, if Pressure's defense matrix eats attacks grabbed, then that is perfect. Perfect difference.
Well, no, he'd have to be called defense, you know. So it doesn't quite work for me. But
of course.
I'll give it half a point. Nano's available now. Here we go, straight to Enocast, and you see a bit of a dart from Top Dragon as well, though.
Yeah, that is going to be straight in. Kellen's got a Primal Rage already, though. Enocast not quite getting it done onto the backline. Kellen slept, though. That's a bit of a potential. Enocast also slept. Hisag pounces on it. Nice find as Kellen's Primal now for the counter punch. If Peach does take down attack. So, as I was talking about that reset, actually, if you're going to lose the fight and you're only going to kill one member, that is like one of the ideal members to kill. Ardo also going down late, and inevitably Incendia will be rebuffed.
You can see that Incendia we're going specifically for the Talon backline there. Enocast drops down. Top Dragon is there to receive the, you know, the dive, but Top Dragon has to recall almost instantly, so maybe he goes in early. Possibly he was there about a second or a second and a half too early. Enocast can't get too much done, and you know, as soon as the jump is off cooldown, jumps backwards towards his own team, but is slipped in midair.
Straight back in though, not wasting any time. Hey, look at that. Pressure at least found Hisag's Pulse Bomb, so that's something. No word on the grab just yet. Speaking of Pulse Bombs, Top Dragon does get the stick, but it doesn't quite connect overall, as in connects to get a kill. Vigilante, I don't know that they intended to nano boost Chorong there, but that's now run out. Ardo trying to get the damage onto the Primal Raging. Inocast, nice find on Uena, but he takes Heesang down with him, so call it even. Inocast, though, driven low, trying to get away back to his supports as Incendia, trying to pressure the point. Speaking of pressure, brought low up. Top Dragon walks in front of an arrow. That's unfortunate. And suddenly no DPSs. Uena is still on his way back in after this. Heesang had the closer respawn and the faster movement, so Grab in a very confined space here. It's a little bit brazen, but it's looking to pay off as Inocast is down. It's Primal Rage to follow it up. It's a big investment for Talon. Actually, Kellen may have got it over his head. No, he gets out alive, and at the end of the day, about a minute left for IE.
There's also a disengagement Dragon Strike coming through Uena as well, so finding the rest of the team some space to maybe escape from the remaining portion of that grab. And Talon Esports, like you sort of mentioned, they just can't quite capitalize. Sort of small space. Didn't see Vigilante there, couldn't get the Bionade in either. 50 seconds remaining now, no nano, not a lot of openings for IE to get anything done. They have to just dry dive in.
Yeah, no two ways about it. Oh, attacks dead to his own right click. That's an oopsie. Ardo's going to have to throw the Dragon Strike down across the team to separate some members out, but a good pulse bomb kill onto a Peach. Prong also just dead with the help of the Bionade. Good kill onto Vigilante. It's a decent counter trade, but honestly, Top Dragon's pretty much last man standing here. So they will at least secure that third. Like, very exactly, they will secure the third. But they will also be reset with only 20 seconds left.
And then that's like kind of, you know, making sure they're not going to be in some sort of a draw scenario, so it's okay. It's not going to be winnable. It's not going to be winnable enough, technically speaking. Uena now over towards a Sombra. We're not looking towards EMP here. Needs to find a manual hack, probably into somebody like Kellen or Attack. But IE are in a lot of trouble here. It's just a self-destruct. They might even have to use that to engage. Fisher has high ground control, as does Inocast now.
All right, straight up onto it. That's some good pressure, actually. Heesang forced way out, really low there. He's going to be able to come back in, but Attack taking a bit of pressure in the meantime. There we go. The rally now from Chorong doesn't quite get manually hacked in time. A Peach just straight up down, and here we go. Now the DPSs just have room to play with for days and days with the extra armor from the rally. Kellen bumping people around with the Primal. Last few members to get dusted off there, and 44.8%. It's, I mean, they certainly improved the 33.3. Funnily enough, though, if it had have been 33.3, then it's actually no difference to not getting any percentage at all, because Talon would still only need to get a third.
Yeah, but it does mean that, you know, you can't draw, so I take
Doesn't
that.
mean you
That's
can't
a W
draw.
in my book. It's the most important thing at the end of the day, is Talon Esports will get a, I don't know if you could say expected full hold here. To be fair, it is Numbani, and Numbani A is fairly defender-sided. So 44.8, and IE just couldn't get enough done on that initial nano, couldn't get enough done on the secondary nano either, and Talon started to slow them down. And even though the grab came on through, didn't really win a fight, it was still like a soft win in that IE had to back out, they had to expend ultimates, had to reset. And now IE's own defense needs to be a fuller hold, has to be ironclad, has to be everything flawlessly. Top Dragon, Trace to start out with. Talon Esports will be moving over towards Sombra Tracer on the attack here, but everything else looking the same.
I dig it. I again, look, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, for one thing, but this also just feels like... This feels like true neutral for Talon. Like, this is the most neutral team comp that they have at their disposal. Like, if they're playing this, it's because they feel comfortable.
More neutral would be to move attack over towards the Diva. That would be like true neutral. This is
I
more,
guess. I like him on the Zarya. That's just my personal Zarya
This
bias.
is halfway between chaotic neutral and true neutral. There is such a thing. If you can get into decimal points, this is where I'd apply it.
It's like it's not a true like grid. It's a sliding scale.
Sure, that's what I go for. It's a sliding matrix. That's my final answer there. Is I think true chaotic neutral here for Talon Esports. But if Ardo also goes on towards the Genji. So again, we're just waiting for the nanos to come on through. Peach is ahead for the time being as Kellen is sleeping. They need to make sure Kellen doesn't die. That's the most important member that is not going to go down. And as Attack and Keller are below half HP, Vigilante will climb up in the healing very fast. But Attack going down, this is going to slow it down quite a bit.
Yeah, it also means that Peach has actually more or less kept pace. If Vigilante had been healing up Attack as well, he would have absolutely taken a lead by now. Instead, shoes on the other foot, and Peach has the earlier nano.
That's just the thing, right? When you got two tanks, quite low HP, you're only just the one Ana. Chorong's not adding any healing here, doesn't want to take any of the ult charge. So IE are in position to get a counter dive going. Let's see if Peach and Inocast can have a successful enough of a counter dive. They've actually gone too early here, so that's unfortunate.
The anti-heal went down to the tanks of Talon for a moment, but Cass just kind of feeling a bit too much heat. Doesn't get much out of the nano, so now Talon are presented with an opportunity. Their own nano onto Kellen as they look to push way forward. Pressure is there to play bodyguard to the squishier members, but they're taking the fight to the point. They know their game plan. They only need to win there, and they go, hold on, there's 3 members on that high ground. Let's just fight the point. Great one from Uena, though, to go straight across the point with that. That evens things up a little bit, and now IE can bring the rest of their force to bear. Kellen, Crypt to Peach occupied that entire time. But he's still not quite able to finish off the extra members. Actually, now Eno Cass coming down as well. Talon is still in this. They could yet finish this off, honestly. EMP to come across the remaining members. The rally armor is helping them, but look at that. Just trying to keep people from getting back onto the point. Talon kind of trades his own life so that Talon can maybe still win on the point here. They are a hair's breadth from it.
It's going to be rallying now into the position where Graviton surge for Talon Esports. They do lose Heat, but Kellen's on his way back now. You see so many members of IE just caught on the other side of the map. They can't rejoin. Inukaz is basically alone.
And it just keeps happening. Like, all the Talon are really doing is they're going, okay, we'll kill a couple of members here, then just keep the respawners from getting there as quickly as possible. IE are barely holding on that defense, and yeah, eventually the bill comes due. IE just kind of run out of gas.
And like I said, well, I mean, they pull they just put the foot down on the gas a little bit too early there. There wasn't a lot of gas to start with, and they kind of burn it all in one go. So unfortunately, this is not a quarter-mile race, and they will be expending their nano boost almost instantaneously. I think, the way you want to be using that is you want to have it as a counter tool, not as an initiation tool on the defense anyway. If you use it as an initiation tool on the defense, the attacking team just says, all right, we'll back out, we'll let you do this, we're going to walk away, you won't get any value, and then we will do our nano dive onto you where you have no good counter dive pressure against us anymore. So that's pretty much exactly what happened to the T. As Incendia Evolution, I don't know, maybe they're desperate, maybe they just felt the pressure on them, ironically, and they felt like they needed to be the ones to pull the trigger to first, and unfortunately that is going to open themselves to pulling the trigger just far too early.
A little bit unfortunate the way the cards end up falling there, but at the end of the day, this isn't unexpected. It's Talon at a 2-0 lead, and a relatively comfortable one, obviously, with the full holds being in play there. And that's the thing, right? Like, even if in that particular moment Incendia hadn't made those exact mistakes and had played differently and even won that fight, you still expect that at some point Talon are going to be able to get a successful fight there. It was only, 44 points something that they had to get. Yep. Very, very achievable for a team like Talon. So not at all an unsurprising result. And with that, Talon are well and truly on track to picking up another 3-0 this season. We'll have to see if they can get that one over the line without any more hiccups. And that'll come up just after this break. Good evening and welcome back from a very normal break. We probably only have one more game on our hands. Usually that it would be a bit too bold and brazen to say that, but I feel pretty confident about it this time. I pulled the card from the tarot deck. I put it up the right way, and it says Hanamura no draw.
Hanamura no draw. Anything else? Does it tell you a winner?
Yeah, no. The second card I drew did say Talon win.
Oh, okay. But describe the artwork.
And then the third card I drew was Nine of Cups, which means someone is going to die tonight.
So the artwork on the Talon win card, was it specifically like a bird, like a hawk kind of looking thing?
No, it was a condor.
Like the talons out. A condor.
It was a condor, yeah.
That's kind of what I said. So you could have just said yes there.
Well, I wanted to be more specific.
The claw like does something quite violently. Is that kind of how it works? Or
yeah, it does something very violent. It's carrying a flaming sword and is about to drop it into the ocean, which I assume would extinguish the sword, therefore killing it in this metaphor.
In my mind, I was just thinking like if a bird was using a flaming sword to have a sword fight, just generally
that would be
speaking.
pretty sick. It's like a condor with a flaming sword versus a buzzard with a halberd. I don't know.
And they just have a sword fight in midair.
Yeah. That would be really cool. I mean,
what I've just described is two Aarakocras having a fight
Aarakocra in D&D. That's what that is.
That's literally what it is. They're having a sword fight in midair, yeah.
Which would be extremely cool and is something I now
Too bad you never let
to
people
do.
play that in your campaigns, so.
I've literally never banned it. I do the opposite. It's like one of the most banned things, and I have no problem with it. I love having it in my game.
I would abuse it. I would heavily abuse it.
I'd be waiting for you to.
I know what you would do. I know what you would do is you would only have indoor settings and where
exactly.
nothing. You can't do anything with it.
No, see, you did the opposite. You played a dwarf, which is like it's like the most ground-oriented creature you could possibly be, short of being fully subterranean.
You wouldn't let me dig to China, and that's
but I did let you fly. So there you go.
I wanted to dig to China, and you said, you know what, China doesn't
exist. And I said, China doesn't exist in this game. Best I can do is
I think that's a lie, really.
But yeah, best I can do is you could dig through to Matt Mercer's setting and go play in his game.
Oh, please. By all means. If only I could. If
No,
only
they'd never let you on. At any rate, let's set the stage.
I don't have the right visa to enter the country is what it is. As Talon Esports now going to go for the Orisa-based defense. It's almost full anti-die. We are missing the McCree. Obviously, he's saying us on the Hanzo, which is there to counter the other Orisa on the other side. And, you know, as we kind of said, before we even got into Havana, like quite early on, knowing that Havana was going to be map 3, high possibility of there being an Orisa mirror, top dragons on towards the Genji, and I think Ardo on the other side is like, oh man, as soon as I die, I'm swapping a Genji, and just wait for it. Ardo probably does swap to the Genji.
Oh, I'm so ready for it. I'm so keen for it. And yeah, you need to be talented to qualify for a Talon visa. There it is.
Give me a round of applause.
You also need to be on Talon to qualify for a Talon visa, which is different, but Ardo, he has talents to boot. He's a lot of the talent of Talon.
It's uncanny how good I am at predicting specific hero swaps on some players sometimes.
You've just been hitting the spice. You've got latent prescience.
I pat myself on the back with that kind of stuff. Anyway.
You drew it from your tarot deck. It was Ardo Genji. You saw it.
So what I saw was two Aarakocra sword fighting. It's actually just two Genji sword fighting here. So we'll wait and see
if
any players can actually come through. It is going to be a window drop by Frog at this point. As IE have the first kill. He's saying down.
Nice find there by Top Dragon, and yeah, the rest of the dominoes kind of fall, but the cart otherwise quite close to it. IE really finding their moment on that engage. Nicely done.
Tell me how you really feel about that fight.
I think it stank like French cheese.
Talon moves over towards the ball now, so I'm going to be playing over towards the Orisa on the defense, which is kind of strange. I think Orisa's still really good on this part of the map. I mean, Cass knows it, also quite close to the Supercharger. It's not going to be a nano boost or anything, but a Peach on the Zenyatta obviously important. More important than that is if you have a Supercharger with the Blade, it's as good as a nano boost, except for the part where you have a 50% damage reduction. So really, it's not as good, but it's better for your team.
I'll take that assessment at face value. IE now just trying to keep the momentum on this side with a bit of a tempo transcendence. Now Shock running out the Dragon Strike. He's saying trying to free fire up the side. That's a pretty chunky ultimate for Attack to 5, but Top Dragon is going to rescue things pretty handily. You can't eat a Dragon Blade. Self-destruct going to get blocked out there by Inner Cass as well, so IE definitely getting the better end of that exchange there, preserving a lot of momentum through B here.
Zan gone for a Peach, moving over towards the Brig now. As IE look like they're slowly gearing up for a potential to play a dive themselves, although that being said, Brig in general is just good at versus Talon's dive, and they're about to commit towards a, well, it's going to have to be a dry Dragon Blade here. Frog staying over towards the back for now, as the Immortality Field is really important for the next fight, as is the window. Talon down early.
Yeah, great fight. Just kind of off the back of the supercharger there, keeping the pressure up against these high ground members. Now Ardo as well as Shock catches a clean headshot. Very nice stuff. Incendia, they should be poised to make a cap off the back of this. Heysag would have to play out of his God-given mind here. Kellen will be coming back before this cap goes over, so that's at least something to hang this on here for Talon. Now let's see what they can actually get done. Kellen's already completely melted. Self-destruct as well, just to zone some members away as Attack has to bear the brunt of it, side being Ardo already in a bit of trouble. I don't know that he's too keen to pull up the blade right here. I think it, like you said, he kind of has to. There's the low health members, but not able to find the opportunity to do it. Instead, Talon going to get cleaned up.
The problem with not blading there is Genji is no longer good on the C cap of this map. He needs to be on Hanzo now. The ideal thing to have done is pull out the blade, go for a miracle when the potential for a miracle fight went on that B defense. If it doesn't work, you swap to the Hanzo, which is what you should be on either. If it does work, you just save your team's bacon on B. So Talon are now going to have to try and force the blade to happen on an unfavorable part of the map. Shock had a brilliant headshot with the Storm Arrow just a little bit earlier as well. You also did see him just completely melt down Talon. So here we go.
Oh, there we go. Good catch onto Shock. That was some like serial killer stuff that Shock was trying to scramble away over the wall. But actually, without a follow-up kill, it just ends up being a 2-for-1, favoring Incendia right now. They lack the Immortality Field, sure, but they've still got plenty of armor from the rally. It's Transcendence for the time being for Vigilante. He's going to keep them alive, but Ardo's already low. There we go, 2 in 1 heartbeat. There's Incendia keeping the man advantage, also keeping pressure and movement on the cart itself now as he's sank down. So Talon, unless they want to throw tank bodies at this cart, it's going to be able to keep progressing towards the cap.
I mean, Talon just forced themselves into an unfortunate situation there. Like I mentioned, Blade is just going to be really difficult to use. The fact that he even gets Shock down is pretty impressive. So now, Ardo, yeah, he's going to stay on the Genji. I still think the Hanzo is just vastly superior here, but he doesn't seem to agree, at least. If Ardo gets any opportunity to play the Genji, as we've seen in previous Talon matches, he will do so. Sometimes to the benefit of his team, otherwise to the detriment of his team. Here come the mines from Kellen.
For what it's worth, Top Dragon had a more successful run on the Genji so far anyway. Here we go, another one onto Ardo, who at this point is just seriously struggling. Nice kill onto Inocast. That's a really good find, actually. So no shield going to be coming into this point. A long walk back. They've got an even head count right now in Incendia as they try and maybe push forward. This is going to be the rally. That's a really nice catch there by Pressure. Really just keeping Incendia in it, but they do lose Frong anyway. They decide they don't want to throw extra ultimates in this, so holding on to the rally, I think that was a sensible call there. Charon had already used his. Incendia knew that they were at a man disadvantage anyway. They're just going to back up. They've still got plenty of time.
Man, even with the cool mechanics coming through from IE, honestly impressed with Pressure today. Just due to the fact that he's had a high amount of ultimate eats, healing there. I think Shock would have 100% been stuck by that pulse bomb. Also for the defensive matrix coming on through. Now they have 4 ultimates counting up. As long as Top Dragon doesn't die here, they can actually start to fight properly. Ardo has another blade. We'll see if he gets a chance to use that properly.
Alright, Dragon strike out first. Mostly blocked up by the Transcendence. Top Dragon's already down. Here we go. Blade time in a very good fight space. Just currently being saved by the Immortality Field that Ardo can't do anything about. While he is a sitting duck, he gets killed off. They finally find out Inocast plus the pair of the structures between the Supercharger and the Immortality Field. Kellen's going to be able to live in here throughout the minefield as well. Committing ultimates into this. I mean, I guess it's working out for them, so I can't criticize it too much, but they had lost some members. Inocast is going to come back in on a wrecking ball anyway, so instead they're going to be able to come out to the point with a man advantage. Kellen's down, not even going to be able to contest. They might cap indeed.
I mean, Kellen at least will save himself from feeding over to the other side of IE where Shock was going to get the kill credit. He's now waiting for the pulse, but he's can definitely save this with a nice placed pulse, but Pressure has in these. I mean, look at that. The defense matrix in Heesang's face straight away.
Ooh, ends up wrapping around the side, finding Shock, who was just outside of the Immortality Field. Top Dragon at least matches, but the lack of DPS will help Incendia's kill pressure. They need to stay ahead in terms of head count for this last bit of fight with that extra armor from the rally from Charon. Top Dragon has really got his work cut out for him. See what Incendia can get done. The self-destruct is kind of laid up, creates a bit of room for Talon to play with. They're now still holding on. They find out Top Dragon, good stuff. Now just trying to juggle the tank damage here as Pressure and Inocast both low. Pressure demeched. Inocast may yet roll away to safety, or indeed may yet not. Pressure's dead for sure, that much I can say. Don't know that the window was ultimately necessary from Frog, but also 20 seconds left. Might as well go for the Hail Mary.
Yeah, there's not a lot to work with here. You know, Cass just has to go for this touch as soon as possible. He's staying with it at the bomb. And honestly, this pulse bomb, a single kill is going to be enough here. Talon have too many ultimates. It's going to be too difficult for Incendia Evolution to finish this map with the time remaining.
Just holding on to it. One good kill with the pulse bomb could honestly be all they need. He's already cornered Frog, takes him out, no need for the pulse bomb, and now it's just a huge disadvantage. Arno finally getting something done with the Dragon Blade. He's going to pull the Diva out of the neck so that Heesan can finish it off. Now with that, i.e. not any presence left on the cart, so we'll get stopped up just barely short as well. It was only about a meter or two from capping. So look, credit where it's due for Talon, because i.e. rolled into C with about 3 minutes on the clock, about 2 minutes when it was threatening the cap. So Talon do hold on at very latent points there in the overall map. It gives them a very clear path to the win here, but also I would say bigger props to IE for getting as far as they did in a very convincing manner.
Absolutely. I think B especially was a bit of a roll because Talon's composition, not the best over there, left a bit to be desired. And even so on C, I would argue a bit more so on B, definitely. And IE just have that snowball rolling on through, and Talon Esports eventually got some high-value fights as the payload neared the end of the C cap. And after that, they just snowballed heavily themselves on the back end, where, I mean, you saw the last fight was something like 4 ultimates to not really anything on the IE side. And IE, despite pressures, really cool defense matrix tricks. I mean, how many pulse bombs is that so far? At least 2 just on this map.
Not bad, honestly. I also, again, just want to bring a bit of spotlight, shall we say, onto Top Dragon, just because there's a very clean one-to-one comparison that can be made between him and Ardo. This isn't to say that he is a better player than Ardo, but certainly when he was on the Genji, he was getting a lot done. We saw like 2 or 3 really high quality Dragon Blades, like, you know, 2-3 kill type Dragon Blades in a row. Ardo's not so much.
Well, Ardo was playing Genji in the wrong parts of the map, and Top Dragon was playing on the right part of the map and had as early because he started on the Genji. Whereas Ardo went for the swap after the fact, after he saw that, you know, Top Dragon had it out, and it's like, well, he's going to do it. That gives me permission. And now it's going to be Ardo on the Hans, which again is the pick that I think Ardo should have mostly been on for the most part of this map, especially after 8. So, throwing over towards the Bat, Vigilante on the Zen. You can tell it's a quite different matchup here. Usually, Vigilante should be on the Bat here as well. It's quite interesting that he is on the Zen. I don't know that's as good.
It's like when you're a kid and you see another kid misbehaving, so now you assume it's okay for you to do it too. But Talon off to a pretty solid start in this particular fight. Showing the only real counter trade here, and I don't know that anyone else is particularly likely to go down. He's like may get picked off depending on how this duel plays out, but no, he's going to be just fine.
Okay, so Talon Esports just continue rolling on through. They'll be approaching the first ultimates as well. You don't quite have anything to work with. Usually in the space, the Baptiste player would have at least a bit of a window coming online, a bit of an ad matrix available. 64 is not that great. And it's Heesan going towards a pulse bomb, so yeah, look, it's going to have to come down to pressure once more to get this defense matrix in.
Okay, that's the Immortality field already out. Just see what they can get done firing through this window. Top Dragon's already dead. The Dragon Strike as well. A lot of damage under pressure. He's going to be able to get finished off by Vigilante. Ardo is at least respecting the window there, but still just trying to get shots through where he can. Finds spot on pressure. Nice catch. And with that, the rest of IE sitting ducks. Easy pickings. Or is that peekings if they're ducks? Get it?
I do. I just thought it was a little insensitive, so Talon Esports.
Peking duck's delicious. What's it?
Yeah,
are you vegan now?
No, I just
You're just a sensitive guy, I understand.
Yeah, I do have tears rolling down my face for other reasons, so Talon Esports...
That's a long journey for those tears.
That's true. Talon Esports have 3 ultimates available. It is going to be the Supercharger out. Now look how forward it is, by the way. They've got the Supercharger so far up, it's actually destroyed straight away.
And that's actually a 5v6 as well. They've actually still got someone back by the car. Attack barely surviving to get back in the back there. The mech, rather. The rally going a long way towards helping with that. He's getting the kill into Top Dragon as well. Actually evens up the man disadvantage. And the man they've got in the card is Ardo anyway. So he's been able to free fire for a significant portion, at least the latter half of this fight. And you really start to see that come out now as the cart continuing to move as the fight comes into its closing moments. Pressure not even able to bump a self-destruct there. IE just going to get forced way off.
Dude, Ardo's Hanzo is just just really ripping through Incendia Evolution currently. I mean, it's uncontested, it's unfiltered, it's just complete utter domination. I mean, Ardo has just landed almost every single shot. damage is extreme. Has another now Dragon Strike ready to play through, so when IE go for the final push, if they even try and make this touch happen, they are just outside the gate, so it looks like they want to touch, but they're not quite there. No, they're not going to go for it at all.
Okay, surprising to say the least. His top dragon's already dead to the pulse bomb, and now it's 2 for off the Dragon Strike. I mean, that's about as catastrophic as it can get on the defense. And now, I mean, the credit was there for IE having about 3 minutes on the clock, rolling on to C. Talon just shy of 5 minutes as they roll on to C. This is looking very winnable.
I get so annoyed because outside of the Genji, and you know, the Genji is really good for Ado for the most part, but he just kind of chose to play the wrong space. So outside of that mistake, like, my God, like, he's just been dominant. He's been, again, the best player on the server. I guess the guy just wants to farm more player of the match at this stage. The Supercharge has got to come on through. Talon have the ultimate advantage.
Can hardly blame the man. All right. Just trades across the board for the time being. Top Dragon does find another one. That's a pretty important catch. There we go, though. 2 more coming back the other way. Talon, they can just kind of push a bar with the Siege because Incendia are still respawning.
Incendia Evolution have not won a single fight, and I don't know that they will at this stage. And look at the time available. When do you ever see, you know, 4 minutes on the C cap? It almost never happens. It requires to have won every single fight up until the stage, which is exactly what telling us. You know what? Ado has another Dragon Strike. He just has these on cooldown.
Yeah. Just endlessly shocks own Dragon Strike first. Puts a bit of pressure onto Kellen, but he's not overly threatened. He's saying now hanging tight to the Pulse Bomb, and it is a 6v6, so Talon are really just kind of hanging by, waiting to find a pick or have some kind of entrance, probably with the Dragon Strike as soon as Ado has it available. We saw attack get brought a little bit low, so now they can just top everybody off. Top Dragon's Blade could be big.
Yeah, this is going to be necessary. You need to see Vigilante and Choron's going to bounce this out, otherwise Top Dragon's going to carve his way through. So here comes the Dragon Strike now, waiting for Top Dragon.
Okay, just gets one with the Pulse Bomb, actually. You'll gladly take that. So now Top Dragon really has to perform with this blade, but first, the amplification matrix is there, straight onto the backline. Nope, stunned up, damaged out. He's in trouble. Can't even, okay, finally gets the extra swing onto Vigilante, but that's a 1-for-1 of the supports. Okay, important find onto Choron as a Peach just goes full Hunter Killer. Bumps him off the side with the whip shot, kills it again for Top Dragon, so he'll be able to hold Talon at bay for now.
Really important that they got at least one support each. I mean, Top Dragon gets a Vigilante down. I believe the Peach is the one that gets Choron down, or in any case, it's Talon losing both of their supports, which on any point, regardless of, you know, how much time you have and how much advantage you thought you had, no healing, no win. Talon Esports for the first time are going to get reset on Havana, which is crazy. I mean, the first fight loss happens here at the back end of C. And Ado working on his next Dragon Strike again, just feels like he has these on cooldown, 69%, so not that far away from the next. Needs a few more shots to land. It's wrong, we use the Amp Matrix, and I mean, it buys Incendia Evolution some time, but it's another one of those ultimates that doesn't find value. Like, you're not going to get a fight when Talon weren't in position to attack anyway, and Talon will now go in.
Okay, Supercharger, impressive eat there, finding shocks, Dragon Strike. Dragon Strike from Ado, just clearing him a little bit of space, potentially. It's been a 1-for-1 so far. Losing Frong is a bit of a tough break. He's saying as well, we'll be able to come back. Frong will get back just a little bit sooner, so Talon are kind of hanging tight, waiting for Hisang.
See what Talon can do with the rest of this now. Double support ultimates from Choron and Vigilante could be the finisher here as Top Dragon looking for the final blade. One more good blade resetting Talon Esports could actually give Incendia Evolution the opportunity to defend this fully and maybe even win the map, but they would need a very good blade.
Yeah, this has been a little bit of a slow go for here for Talon. Oh, that just opens it right up.
Blade.
I mean, it's pretty gross. They just kind of find one with the self-destruct. It creates huge space. Top Dragon dead before he can even finish the animation. Pulling out the Dragon Blade, the self-destruct from pressure, not going to do it. Still a minute left on the clock, so not too uncomfortable. And wow. That wasn't how I was expecting that to go. I was expecting that to be a little bit more of a brawl, but at the end of the day, that's what Talon had presented to them as an opportunity, right? They only needed to get a particularly impressive kill off an ultimate or even just a pick, and all the dominoes would start to fall on the defense. So Incendia were holding on very barely for a very long time.
I want you to, right now, give me, or at least convince me, to not give Ado play the match again. Because the thing here is...
Don't give him man of the match. Because he played Genji when he shouldn't have on the defense.
The problem is, well, I don't know if he's serious or not, but the problem is that the rest of the game for Ado across all the maps, and okay, well, we will, you know, maybe just rub out the fact that there was a couple of EMPs that weren't great on the Sombra, but otherwise it was okay. The problem is the rest of the gameplay was just too phenomenal. Like, at that Hanzo was just again, it was incredible. The Hanzo on Havana was unmatched. It was completely destroyed Incendia Evolution to the point where every fight the man was getting a dragon strike. And then, you know what? The one last blade coming through from top dragon that could maybe save IE, as far-fetched as it sounds, gets shut down by Auto straight away. So I'm battling with it because I think this would be like 2 play the matches for Auto in a row.
If
the guys just dominate again, so it's like it's hard for me to like convince me not to.
Like he has I could make an argument for Kellen. It would be an argument based purely off consistency and kind of always being where he should be. I know that sounds really like, oh, well, of course you're supposed to, like, that's going to happen anyway for a main tank. But, like, he played an extremely consistent game, didn't miss any beats, and like he showed just the general breadth of play as well. Like regardless of the pick, he was playing to maximum effectivity. It wasn't these super flashy kills and things with the nano boost and with the primal rage, but like was enabling so much of the playmaking that was happening, especially when he was over on the wrecking ball on the Winston. Very seldom dying. If he was always making sure it was opening up big opportunities for multiple kills to come through, or at the very least having a one-to-one trade while creating play space. That would be my argument for Kellen.
Yeah. I don't want to stop you, but like 30 seconds ago, I actually decided it wasn't a convincing enough argument, so it's going to have to go to Ardo again. And this time, it's your fault, Pixie. You forced this upon the world, not me.
I mean, I don't know that that's how that works, but sure.
It's not. Also, efficacy was the word you were looking for a little bit earlier. Ardo's going to get the player of the match one more time. It has to go to the player that had the best performance here. And in another 3-0 where a dominant team has a dominant performance, again, read the script here. Everyone played well. They did. But only one person, like, truly dominated. And again, it's got to go to Ardo, who just, he made another convincing case where it was simply, he played too good to not get it. That's just what it is at the end of the day.
All right, sure. Yep, that's your rationale, and I mean, you have an executive decision here, so there's not really much point in me commenting any further on it. So, yeah, I'm gonna say let's take a break, and I'm gonna go look at a picture of a cat or something for 10 minutes. Just feel a bit better about things.
Just one
like,
picture.
I'm gonna mute you. And we can just, and then I'll take 5 deep breaths and then we'll come back. So we'll see you in a little bit, guys. Welcome back. The first half of the night is all done and dusted, though it may be unequal halves depending on how the second match goes, because obviously that was a pretty handy 3-0. Now Havana was a little bit more of an interesting tussle at the end of the day, but still Talon win 3-0, not at all unsurprising. Now as we move on forward though, Team BM are going to come up against Starlight, and this is the one we were kind of saying earlier. This is where BM are at very serious threat of not clinching the third place seed that they're kind of looking for. And just to highlight the importance of that, assuming that this match is the difference between them finishing third or finishing fourth, the third place team only needs to win one match to go into playoffs. Fourth place team needs to win 2 matches. One of those matches would be against the team, one of the teams that finished third place. It could even be the one that finished third place in your group and had previously beaten you.
And third place can be pretty tough as well. I mean, you look over towards Group B, GC Busan might end up being the third place team, and that's a scary third place team to go up against. I think that's,
sure.
You take GC Busan, you put them into Group A. I think they're finishing Group A third place as well, which goes to show that, that's just a matchup you don't want to go into if you are any other team but GC Busan. Starlight Gaming, the competition here on the other side of the board for BM Hawk to play up against, has an opportunity to go 2-2 now, because they lose to O2, they lose to T1, expected. But BM Hawk are the game tonight, and beyond that as well, next week for Starlight Gaming, they have JNGK.
Yeah.
So, 2 winnable games for Starlight where, look, if Starlight end up finishing 2-2, they're pretty much guaranteed third seed, and they'll be in a really great spot, and you don't want to be, then at that stage we're looking towards either BM over for 4th seed, or maybe JNGK for 4th seed, and one of those teams will be eliminated. JNGK obviously at a greater risk, because they are currently 0-3, and they would need to win next week versus Starlight just to stay heads above water.
Yep.
So Starlight now have an excellent situation presented ahead of them, where they have 2 games left to play, and both are pretty winnable.
That being said, I would argue for Starlight, both are potentially losable as well. Like the possibility of that, I would say, is a very real threat that Starlight definitely shouldn't be discounting. Right. In fact, a loss to BM here would put them in exactly the same situation as JNGK find themselves, where they would be fighting for their tournament lives next week. At the very least, they pick up a win here, they go into next week with a significant amount of breathing room and safety. If they lose here, either them or JNGK are getting eliminated. Like, that turns next week's match between these two into an elimination match.
Pretty much. I mean, and this game sets up all the stakes for that, because, you can see BM has the capability of finishing their season 2-2, which would lock them into third if they finish 1-3. Most likely end result is going to be a 4th seed here, or a tiebreaker if then JNGK end up winning. In fact, you have a really weird situation where JNGK can be 1-3, BM will be 1-3, and then Starlight will be 1-3. You actually have a 3-way 1-3 tiebreaker that could happen at the end of the season.
It's possible. And if that happens as well, we go to map differential, obviously, because you can't break it just based purely off any kind of head-to-head. So the map differential starts to become a factor as well. Let's be clear about that. Starlight winning is only one thing. They kind of want to get a comfortable win in terms of map differential, if at all possible.
Starting lineup for BM Hawk here. The notable thing is that Papa Dog has joined the team as recently. So, Papa Dog, you'll remember from Gen G previously, we are seeing a lot more Gen G players kind of show up into the mix as we get deeper into the season. Just a week ago, Top Dragon was introduced, who is on loan from Gen G as well. Even though Top Dragon didn't really play on the main Gen G roster, he's part of that organization. Papa Dog now in a similar boat, where comes in from Gen G, actually did play for Gen G last season, and was probably one of the new but also kind of stand-out-ish kind of members. Now, given another opportunity to show what he's made of on BM Hawk, which I believe puts Abel on the bench for our opening map.
Okay, fun stuff. We don't get the Babel and Abel combo that I so love, but I would say the caliber of the rest of this team is pretty self-explanatory at this point. BM Hawk, I think, are actually just a team that's almost struggled for having a bit of an unfortunate schedule, if you will. This being their last one of the season. They obviously got the early win against JNGK. And then, naturally, they struggled against O2 Blast. That was always going to happen, but then also struggled quite a bit against T1. So,
probably also expected.
Exactly. Expected, which means it's hard to gauge the real strength of this team. You can kind of look at those matches and go, okay, well, what were the highlights of that for these teams? And obviously, Starlight have had the exact same thing, where they've come up against both of those teams. They lost, and you've got to look at that and say what were the highlights that they had against those top two teams in the group. And our relative metric in this head-to-head is based purely off that. Like, it's highly anecdotal.
Let's take a look at the other side now. Starlight Gaming have Taka, I think, is probably one of the more important members here. Violetta in their last matchup had a reasonable performance on the Diva. In fact, a more than reasonable performance, quite a good performance on the Diva, where a lot of ultimates were absorbed by the defense matrix, something we saw Pressure do in our previous matchup just then. So I think it was actually good enough that had Starlight won their previous matchup, which was in, what week? Last week versus O2 Blast. I mean, it wasn't going to be a win for Starlight Gaming, but if it was possible to hand a player of the match to anyone other than somebody on O2, Violetta would have been up for it for sure, just for how good that Diva was, despite them being in quite a losing situation.
Yeah, so it's always hard to draw major conclusions in these sorts of situations, kind of like what we've been talking about just before as well with BM, but with VM, you've got that win to draw from against JNGK. It was a reasonably comfortable looking win. That's kind of the only thing to lean on here. Aside from that, you're kind of looking at maybe just some straight up one-to-one comparisons. And through that lens, for what it's worth, I am quite excited to see these DPSs really face off. I feel like when we see, especially players like Babel, really come into their own and start popping off, that's one of the highlights of a team like BM. So over on the Starlight side of things, Taka kind of being the similar piece on the chessboard, if you will, in terms of having some really impressive pop-off moments. Sparrow being no slouch, don't get me wrong, but it's sort of like there's a few critical points that I'm going to look to. I'm also quite interested in the support lineup. Obviously, Sanguinar being a very known quantity, Papa Dog to a similar extent, and then coming up against Bunjo and Maka, I think that's going to be where a significant amount of difference is actually made in these matches.
Taka versus Babel and that McCree matchup could be really important as well. I think both teams have some favorability in terms of going over towards the Orisa, especially on towards the Havana map. Although, you know, I mean, Hanzo has been more important, so we'll see who ends up picking that one on either squad. As based on what we saw over all our past games, I wouldn't be surprised if most compositions and most matchups ended up being fairly similar in terms of where things should be landing. Over towards the other DPS, I mean, although it is going to probably be that Hanzo player if anything. A lot of ball being run by both teams. Yaho's had a lot of ball gameplay so far this season. Songun's had a decent amount over onto the Starlight side as well. So a lot of good options. I mean, a lot of versatility being shown from both sides as far as just previous matches.
So obviously we kick things off on Oasis. There's not a lot more to say about that, to be perfectly honest. I actually think Numbani is where we're going to see more of a difference being made. Obviously, unless Oasis is an absolute blowout favoring one team, and I'm kind of expecting that it won't be. In fact, in general, I'm expecting this to be probably a close-ish matchup. I say ish because that's just kind of leaving the potential space for one of these teams to, you know, absolutely outclass and pop off. And again, it's hard to say that say whether or not that's likely ahead of time, just because there's so little evidence to go off in terms of how well these teams can potentially play when they're against another team of a similar caliber, which is what you would expect these two teams to be to one another. So with that all being said, I think there's nothing left to do but actually go into Oasis and start playing some Overwatch. How about it?
See if Abel and Papa Dog end up being in the same roster at the same time as well, because that would open up the possibilities of them going for both the BAP and a Zen, as we see for the counter comp in terms of playing the Orisa mirrors. I think Sanguinar does actually have a BAP in the hero pool, just to back it up. So Papa Dog staying in for Zen BAP can be done with Sanguinar in the opening lineup. We're probably not expecting that on first map of Oasis just yet. It's actually University again. And on our last University showing, we had an Orisa start, which is fairly normal. Starlight Game, it looks like they want to go over towards the Winston here. So it's going to be the Ana for the Maka to start out with, and Taka over towards Tracer after the teleporter.
Sure. I don't see why not. Sungyun's actually opting over to... Okay, Protect's definitely not being a Winston. That's just him having a bit of a fun time. There we go. And looking like Yahoo is committing to the Orisa as well. So that's looking to be the main difference between the two teams. Violator actually, late moment, is going to swap back to the D.Va.
This is really interesting because BM Hawk have gone for almost a very greedy kind of anti-Orisa composition just by being on the Orisa here, so the counter comp, or just the, the mirror composition. They got the Bamsan backline, as we kind of expected. I kind of noted that maybe Sanguinite could go over towards the BAP. Once they realize that Starlight are playing dive, and maybe if BM Hawk end up losing one of those players, or they reset and they lose the fight entirely, they probably will change off of it. May won't give them a lot of help here either, so Although needs to go back over towards something more like a Tracer.
It's BM Hawk just kind of muscled off the point to start with, even better yet with the kill onto Papa Dog. I mean, there was a hot second there where just about everybody was crowd controlled. People were either hacked, slept, or had an anti-heal on them, and that's to say nothing of Papa Dog being outright dead. Immediately goes for a switch as well. So there we go, SLC. Starlight should be able to just clean up these last few to collect this initial fight. The opening cap.
Brig not a normal hero for Papa Dog. I mean, he is the flex support on the team, and usually he probably would be that play, but Sanguinite is one of his main heroes. Will stay on towards it. If nothing else, Babel's done a ton of damage. His Dragon Strike nearly available here. Dragon Strike has been popped.
Pulse Bomb just kind of helping them finish off Protect's mech. So this is just kind of one fight immediately rolling into the next. Good kill onto Sungyun because Protect's actually got away here. BM Hawk, they're actually able to set up some serious presence on the point now. Is Starlight going to try and push back in with a nano boost straight onto Taka? Protect's still not back into the mech, but it's actually Overwatch going to be the first casualty. Finally find out Yahoo. Taka not quite as healthy as he maybe wants to be at this point. They're sort of partially locked out thanks to the Ice Wall there. Self-destruct from Violator, finding nothing, and he won't be getting back in the mech either. This has become really scrappy now, but Starlight starting to kind of push back in. Here we go. BM Hawk, final few kills, will get it over the line. Starlight were on a knife's edge for a long time there.
And Babel just doing the most here. Just so much damage coming through once again from this Hanzo. Really important that you can play up against the Hanzos here. You're either going to use the Hanzo or you're going to find a way to take down the Hanzo on the opposing side. And given over towards Taka, like you sort of mentioned, probably was a mistake. Usually that would go over towards your Winston player. Tracer can't quite make use of that Anna as much as possible. Sparrow's been found out. You want to see an EMP, but Sparrow probably has translocated backwards.
Aggressive from Sungyun, but he's isolated from his team for a second there. That's only 2 members with the EMP, but taking out all those Blizzard is a decent one potentially. Babel's actually the first casualty. They've caught up his Dragon Strike as well, so that's a sort of double for your money kill. BM. Just one man down. It's the only disadvantage here now leading into their own ultimates. The Blizzard and the Supercharger, both very threatening tools. The Supercharger's dealt with pretty handily though. Blizzard's not so much. They just kind of have to wait that one out. But here we go. D-Mech onto Violator, and with Sungyun dead, this is now no tags for Starlight. So BM will be able to hold on to the point for the time being.
BM looking a lot more comfortable now. Babel even moving over towards the McCree. I suppose that's going to be a counter towards the fact that Starlight are playing so much dive. So despite the fact that his Hanzo has been doing so much damage and so much pressure, be taking, I would dare say, even just a little bit of a foot off the gas pedal, so I have to be a bit careful about that. Maka,
yeah.
New Nano coming on through this one definitely has to go into Songa. They need a little bit more backline pressure. It is versus McCree and May, which is kind of scary in terms of diving into. Again, not expecting the May to be doing too much, but although it's still on it for now.
Yeah, I appreciate the change. It's the more patient defensive pick. Like you said, it maybe takes the foot off the gas a little bit, but I don't know that's necessarily the wrong call here. Sungyun frozen up with the nano on him. Gonna be frozen up again. Absolute popsicle gorilla. No surprises there. He'll hack onto Babel, but he's not particularly threatened as there we go. The kills come through with BM Hawk just happy to walk it up to Starlight, who were in the process of trying to regroup after the unsuccessful push-in with the nano onto Sungyun. With that, BM will find themselves the 99 to 36. So they essentially went 0 to 100 there once they'd got control of the cap from Starlight after losing the opening fight. Pretty consistent there from BM Hawk.
BM Hawk, I think we're not favored to win that opening fight anyway, just due to the compositional matchup. That's most of how these control games are going to go. We've saw it all of yesterday, where opening decisions in terms of what read you have, what you believe the other team is going to play, you trying to counter that is going to dictate how all your opening fights go, and the neutrals give you a lot of advantages in terms of snowballing. So the fact that BM Hawk can turn it around that quickly and not allow Starlight to snowball too heavily, really important. Now we're going to go over towards full dive gameplay, although to be playing the Tracer this time around, Tag going to stay on the Tracer, and it's still Nano being played with a Winston for the Starlight Gaming squad, even though I think Ball is definitely stronger on this map.
Very fast rollout, naturally, from BM Hawk. Starlight will at least be able to make the rotation to the high rounds. That's what they're kind of leaning on for this here, but just kind of rejiggering the positioning over and over again, actually. BM Hawk and Starlight both.
Starlight definitely need the, I would say, jump pack side of the map. BM Hawk are capable of taking either one. I heard it got slid there. Spirit can't quite connect the hack either onto low, and that would have been a really great target.
A little bit of pressure on Fable, but I mean, he's sort of so wrapped up with the rest of his team, it's really hard to break through to him. And in that instance, Starlight kind of leave themselves exposed anyway. So BM Hawk just kind of happy to let the fight come to them almost, as the two teams sort of rotated around each other until eventually they clashed very asymmetrically.
I mean, what you see there is Spirit trying to find an opening hack target for Starlight so they can dive into them. And Sungun's probably waiting. Spirit once again is just on the flanks. He's not farming an EMP, so it's not going to be playing for any sort of fast EMP timing. It's just a hack dive. And now a back cap as well to try and pull BM Hawk backwards.
Just trying to force the hand of trying to make the fight happen where Starlight wants it, but I mean, don't know that Starlight necessarily have the tools to back that fight up. Like you said, they kind of need that manual hack first for one thing. Ideally, they'd like a nano boost here for Sungun, and BM Hawk can just kind of sit tight.
They're too far away from everything. I mean, the nano's not there, the hack isn't there, the EMP isn't there. At this stage, you need to be playing for, I would say, the primary win condition is always going to be the nano when you have an Ana on to play. So about 45% is gone, and Mac is on 82%. It's not good enough. They need to get a dive going ASAP.
Even with that, Papa Dog now has the Transcendence, so he needs to be the manual hack target realistically. Gonna get completely noticed, immediately pops the Transcendence, and that's with the Nano already running on Sungun, so largely counted out by that. Now Rally as well. The EMP is there, but this is at a man disadvantage now as they lack Overwatch, and all these members super low as well. Well, not super low, but Maka kind of working double shift. Now with him dead, every bit of damage is gonna stick. BM Hawk, with only 2 fights that have really happened, are suddenly in final fight territory.
And there needs to be more. There needs to be something like 4 fights here, maybe even more for Starlight Gaming, as BM Hawk just casually sit around. They're defending it regardless because they have the cap control, they have the percentage ticking up. They win if no one does anything. And they had the defensive ultimates. They had so many ultimates, double support ults, and now that they're gone, Spirit has an opportunity, but even if Starlight turn this around, it's going to be at the 99% mark.
The crazy thing in all of that is, like, it's still going to be 2 ultimates for 2 ultimates here. Obviously, the self-destruct will be on a similar kind of timing, but you got to the minefield that you're going to have to contest with all the defense. Sungun's got a primal rage, but he's going to need to find a handy corner trap if they're right in the open. I don't know that that's going to matter. And they're not even taking the fight around the point anyway. BM Hawk know that they don't have to. Babel does get bumped off to the side, but he's not dead. He's going to be able to come back in. Sungun is super low. He is at least able to get that particular health back. There's the EMP, a 1-for-1 now. Protect will not be able to self-destruct to reset the mech. Will go down here as well, but BM Hawk, they keep all low with Babel alive. That could be enough to hang something on. No, Yahoo now down. Sungun dead. Violetta can reset his mech with the self-destruct, unlike Protect could. So Taka now finding one of Babel with the Pulse Bomb. That'll be the cleanup here for Starlight. They finally make something happen based purely off the fact that they had an EMP. And there was no immediately obvious answer for BM Hawk, but even then, it was not an easy capitalization for Starlight.
So it's EMP that lands on 2. Immediately they delete Papa Dog. Starlight Gaming will be able to get the fight over that. Very quick pickup. And Spirit going down here is going to be a little bit upsetting. BM Hawk have a 6v5 and BM Hawk on their way back towards the point. As the rest of the ultimates start to come online now, it's about to be Transcendence time for Papa Dog. You need to see Maka play this nano. They need to put on Sungun and start a fight.
BM Hawk now, just kind of waiting for their golden opportunity. They only need to get the 1. Looking to charge up the ultimates, Transcendence ideally. Starlight going to try and be proactive. Huge melt onto Sungun, already down. Now BM Hawk, straight man advantage. They just want to wait out the anti-heal, top Babel off, push straight in. They've nearly got a minefield. They've got the Transcendence if they get threatened. The rally is decent, but it's not going to save Violetta or Taka. Certainly not from the Pulse Bomb there for Overwatch, and suddenly BM Hawk, they find an opening, and they absolutely smash through the rest of Starlight, immediately getting the cap over. It's a nice, clean finish off for BM Hawk.
Good 2-0 to get things started here. As they have a bit of a deficit to work through on University, not too much, just a small deficit. And then over towards the city center map here as well. I mean, it's a 42% picked up by Starlight, which was after 99 was already secured for BM Hawk, and that first 99 from BM Hawk looked so comfortable. They just waited around as Starlight didn't really get a dive going, and BM Hawk are like, well, the longer this takes, the more percentage points we gain. So BM Hawk didn't have to do too much there, and Starlight were just a little bit too slow to get anything done, and were punished pretty heavily for that. So it's got to be a convincing opening on Oasis here for BM Hawk, and now we start to maybe recontextualize this matchup a little bit here, as we initially thought this could be a really close matchup. I mean, Oasis just was not that. Maybe things could change for our next two, but the way things are going, BM Hawk are looking good.
Yeah, I feel like Starlight aren't playing as well as they could. That's maybe the one thing here. It could get more close if Starlight start to come alive a little bit. Like, I mean, as we even remarked, not to harp on about it, but obviously on City Center, like they were just so slow to make any kind of plays. They were struggling to set themselves up. They it felt like they were maybe a bit too hesitant at times. They were too afraid of it. And it doesn't mean that you should just be like all go 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 go. But they were the other extreme, where they were just way too patient, way too slow with what should have been a pretty fast-paced team composition. They could actually reset very quickly and just find quick engages with manual hacks. They weren't finding anything like that. So I feel like if Starlight were playing that more correctly, it first of all could well have been more competitive, but also I think they can play well enough to execute that properly. They just kind of weren't up to scratch. It feels like they maybe haven't got fully up to speed. They're not fully activated yet. I don't know. I can only use so many analogies to describe this. At the end of the day, this isn't the best we can possibly see Starlight be. We have seen them play better than this, and I think if they're playing at their best, it could still be competitive, but BM Hawk are looking good. I don't know if it's necessarily enough for Starlight to close the gap.
Starlight Gaming are on 0 wins so far. They need to pick up this to make things competitive. Otherwise, next week versus JNGK is going to be an elimination game. So it'll be teed up in the pre-show. But right now, I mean, BM Hawk, the more we look at this, the more you realize, again, you look at their roster. They have Papa Dog just joining them from GNG, which was a kind of a team that, okay, they haven't done, GNG hasn't done super well, but GNG have also had really good players on the team. So I think individually, GNG has been good. Just as a team, for some reason, they just weren't clicking. That being said, you even without Papa Dog, you look at the rest of BM Hawk, they have the literal defending champions of 3 of the O2 Blast members on this roster. So I mean, on paper, BM Hawk to me has always been kind of at least like low-key stacked, not high-key, because there's just other better teams out there, and BM Hawk have obviously struggled a bit in the season as well. But when push comes to shove, BM Hawk should on paper be like the GC Busan of this group, which is to say the best of the rest. If you're not in the top 4, then really the next best teams are GC Busan and BM Hawk.
And certainly they've proved that they are so far, at least against JNGK. You know, they've beat one of the rest. So the other context of this is right now Starlight are just the other team that constitutes, quote, the rest. So yeah, BM Hawk, like, this isn't unexpected in one sense, as much as we spoke about the potential closeness. A lot of that closeness, that potential closeness at least, just came from a place of uncertainty, because there's only so many conclusions you could draw when, at the end of the day, both teams had essentially a losing record, with that one win against JNGK being the only difference maker there, because BM Hawk had played them and Starlight haven't yet. So now that we're actually seeing the teams come head-to-head, now that it's starting to shake out, this is where it feels really hindsighty, obvious to go, yeah, of course BM Hawk are going to be the better team. They're like, look at the members, look at how stacked they actually are. Starlight, though, again, just to revisit it, I do think they could play better than they did on Oasis, and maybe if they do start playing better, this could still be a close match.
It's supposed to be winnable. That's what it is. When you go up and have a matchup that doesn't include any of the top 4 teams, so no O2, no T1, no Talon, no CC, when it doesn't have any of those four teams, and the other 6 teams get to play against each other, it should be winnable. That's what it is on paper. But even then, there could be gaps in here. We've seen GC Busan gap the other 2 teams in their group, and now you could potentially see BM Hawk doing the same thing. This is BM Hawk's final match of the regular season before they lock in whatever result they do lock in, which is either 4th seed or 3rd seed at this stage, as it would be pretty unlikely for them to exit 5th. That would require some really interesting tiebreaker scenarios to come on through, and Starlight to definitely win this match. And Starlight right now starting to attack with Decal on the fire. Decal, by the way, an defending Contenders champion, and ex-member of Talon as well, taking a bit of damage, but okay for now as BM Hawk. Early scouting were revealed. Alright, well, this is the matchup. Now we know what we're dealing with.
Yeah, I gasped 2 there in unison with Decal, so fair enough, but obviously BM Hawk were on the retreat. Babel well ahead of Sparrow. Not that that's the most impactful ultimate, really. Your eyes should be looking to someone like Maka, who has not been super quick, all things considered, with this nano boost, but that is also because Starlight haven't necessarily been pressuring much with the tanks yet.
You need to see Sungun dive in here as well. It depends on what the game strategy here is for Starlight. Do they want to get aggressive and get Decal into action and play nanos on Decal, or is it going to be nanos on Sungun? And either way, you do need the nano, which Maka is about 15% away on currently. Going over towards the barrage. Papa Hawk, yeah, Papa Dog on BM Hawk. Out with the window nearly.
Gonna say this is gonna be a little bit tough for Starlight to deal with. They just kind of have to wait this out. Obviously, just the damage threat that can come out of Yahoo through that window. Here we go, though. The nano onto Decal, so they've decided they want to play through the Farah. Rocket Barrage will find Yahoo. It's a 1-for-1, though, so not great mileage. They can at least res, and there we go, as they demech protect as well. So no tags on the table for BM Hawk. There should be Starlight cracking it open. Oh boy, although it's gonna make it interesting, I'll say that much. Able as well, the Dragon Strike does run across, even finds Decal. This is actually super doable now, as the DPS is spring forward to finish off Overwatch. Starlight, their hard work just got completely undone by a sick double pulse bomb from Although, and then Babel just getting the follow-up, the zoning from the Dragon Strike and the follow-up kill as well.
Sick highlight reel coming through from Babel here on towards the Hanzo. I mean, looking a lot like Ardo did in the last matchup. It's kind of what you need. We are in the Hanzo meta. As
compliments.
Starlight are just unable to get anything done. I mean, 0%. They didn't even get on the cap, sadly. So many kills to work with. Pulse bomb from Although cleans up 2, and Babel cleans up everybody else. Starlight to reset back to neutral, reset back to square one here. At least they have the other 4 ultimates. They only expended Nano and also the barrage, so everything else has suddenly come online. BM Hawk is still waiting for a couple ultimates, and they are damaged. They might want to rally soon.
Ooh, super aggressive there. They've immediately found Yahoo, so that's kind of something for Starlight. The rest of BM Hawk are going to be able to push back in with this rally at their backs. It is at least a bit of progress on the point here for Starlights. Here we go. The window deployed as well, the amplification matrix. Papa Dog's dead, though. They're not going to be able to do much more pushing through that, as Decal at this point is free-firing onto these respawners. And with that, I think BM Hawk, they're kind of out of gas to keep recontesting. They know it, too. They don't want to get really dangerously wiped, so they're just going to back up and let the cap go.
And 3 minutes plus remaining for Starlight Gaming here. So well done by Sungun to make some early ingress over towards the back line of BM Hawk, just diving on the Primal Rage. Start off with a nice frag. And then for BM Hawk to slowly fall apart, sadly, as they can't quite get their ultimates in play enough. Yeah, the window did come on through, but Papa Dog doesn't have a lot of sight lines, couldn't really see much. Self-destruct now with the Dragon Strike layered up.
Ooh, okay, that's something. It's an open for BM Hawk here as they look to push back onto the card. If they can finish off Violetta here as well. Staying alive for the time being. Maka really putting in the hard yards. Part of that is obviously Overwatch is able to be in the pocket of the tank. So with that, BM Hawk going to send Although on a flank instead.
Possible spawn camping set up here. Starlight Gaming are maybe struggling to get out of the base, and here they're going to have to probably expend ultimates just to get this fight started. Dragon Strike and a Nano.
It doesn't really do much to split the team up, though, BM Hawk. I mean, Protect just kind of flies over it. Yahoo doesn't mind being on the side anyway, so damage onto the back there as all those Pulse Bomb just kind of gets tossed out. Doesn't quite find its mark. Sungun's still going to get finished off, though, so nicely done there. The damage from Babel, just the quick spam, the burst that can come out of that Hanzo, obviously a super threat, and now Starlight don't fancy fighting through the rest of that minefield. They're just going to back away. Late kill on Decal.
A very accurate shot on the Hanzo there as well. I mean, again, it's just really nice shots coming through from Babel on the Hanzo again today. Starlight Gaming are struggling. Spear has moved over towards the Sombra. Now, you know they're kind of in trouble. I mean, Hanzo is good, but they are, I was going to say, heavily investing into the dive. So are BM Hawk, just they're playing dive with the Hanzo in the back line. Getting another Dragon Strike towards play. It feels late to be going over towards the Sombra. Like, sure, you can get the hack on the Yahoo. That's going to be pretty decent. That's probably your main hack target, but EMP is not going to be coming for probably another 40 seconds.
Now just looking to get aggressive against Starlight. The crowd control to Sungun. He's already 2/3 the way to dead. Has to drop down, get some healing before he can try and stay in the mix.
Interesting Dragon Strike.
No, super threatened. Gonna get finished off. The Dragon Strike doing most of that. Babel happy to get the last couple of shots in. Does die to the self-destruct, but honestly at this point the damage is done. BM Hawk now super aggressive. The extra armor on Although he's an absolute dynamo in this little space. Decal going down to what must be his own pulse bomb there. Maka's own nano boost kind of comes to naught, although squeaking out alive there into the immortality field. Good kills coming through onto Sanguinar. This is some low members of BM Hawk, so an opportunity presented for Starlight. Protect not going to be able to reset the back, also clears out that very confined space. And even then, that fight's not been happening on the payload. That fight's been happening adjacent to the payload. This will be an extra finish off, though, and Starlight will finally get back underway.
EMP to boot as well, but time is just unfortunately not their friend here. So we're not really expecting Starlight to finish the map. they just don't have the resources to get that done. They would have to massively snowball, and this EMP would have to be perfect, flawless. Papadog has no counter here. Transcendence already burnt. Transcendence actually, he didn't have it. He was playing the BAP, so never mind that. Transcendence just not going to be there. Also there previously. Here comes a rally as well. EMP 3.
Really big, and I was going to say, they were already playing it really close to the mark there, BM Hawk. 0.12 of a meter, but pretty handy finish off there by Starlight with an EMP. Quick clean up as well, so they'll be able to confirm that cap. Actually just barely goes into the overtime beforehand, and that's actually an important difference because that is slightly less time given to them now with the cap.
I mean, they still get a minute 30 on the cap, regardless of whether it was the overtime
I think you
or
got
not.
2 minutes if it wasn't overtime.
No, it's a minute 30 regardless.
Goes to show what I know.
Oh, we knew. We know, Pixie.
That's nice.
As Nanoburst coming online for Starlight Gaming. Can they get this done with a bit of extra momentum when behind their sails? Will also have self-destruct online if they can maybe swing this fight into the rally eventually down the line. Maybe an EMP, you can definitely see the possibility, but would have to be flawless to come on through for the next fight.
Very aggressive from Sungyun, trying to finish off the corner trap, but everyone's able to get saved there by the Immortality Field, and Sungyun spends too long in the deep end. Nice pulse bomb into Overwatch as well. The wind is now firmly out of Starlight's sails, and this Violator self-destruct is absolutely massive. Remacking here. Late kill onto Aldo is nice, but Starlight already backing out anyway.
And that's all their ult's gone. So, well, I guess they don't cap after all. 30 seconds
good
remaining, and just Starlight Gaming at one shot, really. Had to be perfect. Anything but, sadly. And okay, EMP does coming on. EMP is available next. Sanguinite will have the rally first. Sanguinite can rally fairly early. They can expect that the EMP should be coming on through. I mean, it's last fight anyway, so you're going to rally regardless of whether you know the EMP is there or not. This BM Hawk is just going to swing into ultimates.
So here we go, looking to get into it. That EMP has got to be a decent something as the overtime begins. Last EMP was actually pretty solid out of Sparrow, so we'll have to see if we can do the same. That is pretty decent. They've got the extra rally armor still for a wee while, so Starlight not having the same good time trying to follow up on this now. It's completely comes, and now we'll have to see what other kills they can get. The space created there for a moment by the self-destruct. They finish off by a ladder now. The rally from Overwatch, not enough to save Macca's life, and I imagine not enough to save anyone else's life either, as Starlight are going to get picked off on this point. Babel down in the counter trade, but it's not anywhere near enough to turn the fight around.
Very cool Deadeye just for the free reload there, coming through from Babel and BM Hawk, and Halo will stop pretty much where it starts here on the final fight for Starlight Gaming. Yeah, they even get themselves to their own rally, but just no damage output. I mean, I'm just kind of disagreeing with the Sombra gameplay coming on through. I mean, yeah, again, you can get the manual hack onto Yahoo, but I don't see how it does anything to anybody else on the team. Even with Papadog having no Transcendence, the rally is still pretty good on the defense, and SLT have been kind of lacking the damage department for some time now. Like they couldn't match the Hanzo of Babel when they had their own Hanzo, and deleting their own Hanzo is just not going to help them in that situation. So now on the defense, see what the opening comp is going to be. Fire once more, so they really want to get this Fire gameplay on for both. Definitely on the attack and down to the defense. It's going to be an Orisa-based opposition for the defense here. So okay, they don't need a dive tank to buy the Fire time or space, but Decal is still going to need to find ways to slow down BM Hawk, and I do believe BM Hawk are going to go towards possibly a ball dive composition, so I don't know if there's going to be great targets for Decal to shoot against.
I've realized something completely separate to all of this, by the way, and it's just been on my mind, so I'm going to bring it up now. When did they stop doing maps that were fictional places and started just doing real places? Because Numbani isn't a real place. And then like King's Row, like it's clearly meant to be London, but they don't call it London, it's King's Row. But like now they just do like either, they just do like Paris, which is just a real place. Like, why didn't they just make King's Row London at the time? Because it's not like the Paris map is a real place in Paris anyway. It's still a fictional place in Paris. Like, when did they stop feeling the need to have it be a fictionalized version of a place?
I mean, Australia's not a real place, so Junkertown's not real either.
Junkertown's right out, no. But it's just something that occurred to me, because like Rialto is borderline, because it's clearly meant to be Venice, and Rialto is like a place within Venice. But they still call the map Rialto instead of Venice, but then Paris is just Paris. They didn't try and fictionalize it or anything.
And
I don't know.
BM Hawk are going to be flying. So they have a fire themselves as well. Sanguinite hacked out though, and that's going to be an early frag.
Yeah, that's an ouch. The anti-heal as well, just landing down onto a couple of critical members. Good counter trade at least from Although, but hey, Sanguinar can't res himself, but should be able to get back into the fight before too long. The main thing is Violetta is actually unresable with where he died, so BM Hawk could be able to push back in still. Sorry, Starlight rather could be able to hold off still. That's what I'm trying to say. Words are hard.
Nano early coming through from Papa Dog. Now it's going to go over towards Although, and Marcus same Nano boost will go over towards Decal eventually. BM Hawk with a slight advantage in the ultimate department. Can they get maybe a bit of a move on again? Here we go. The Nano's coming on through. Altho's going to need to look for targets. And 200 damage rockets in.
He's going to find one in the form of Sungun. Babel gets the kill credit, but now Although has his wings clipped and the Nano boost just kind of runs out. Not a whole lot gained, but at least with the kill on Sungun, it forces a reset. As I say that, here we go. Pushing around the side. It's BM Hawk, I mean, they're in a pretty great spot here. There's not a whole lot Decal can do.
Oh, we're literally on the point here. I mean, Decal has to do everything, but I don't know if he can. Barrage instantly slept.
Yep, and that's just a bit of a nothing burger at the end of the day. They're just going to wait, hang tight, finish him off when it's convenient for them. Sanguinar down, though. That's a good find for Starlight. Decal, they didn't end up killing him off. That's maybe a little unnecessarily greedy, because they could have just damaged him, spiked him, and burst him down. Instead, BM Hawk actually get repelled.
Well, the problem is the player that do that is actually Although, who himself also got slept in there. A little bit unfortunate. I think somebody might have woken up Decal, yeah, because he goes down, sleeps, and instantly somebody gets the wake up. Whereas Although gets slept by Macca on the other end and doesn't get woken up, gets entirely fragged. And BM Hawk are going to fail to cap that A point with any decent amount of time. They're actually losing quite a bit here. They have only 1 minute 15 left for the last tick, and sure, they can get that last tick pretty comfortably if they manage to dodge away this EMP, which is imminently coming. Spare on the back line. Doesn't see a lot. Okay, they know it's coming. Yeah, here we go.
Okay. Yeah, and that should be a pretty tidy cleanup as well. Babel already dead. The extra damage is kind of coming down through. Protect's going to go ahead and throw himself a strike, partially to reset the mech, partially to create a bit of space, see if they can make something happen as they kill Decal. Good kill onto Sanguinar, though, with the self-destruct. It means just as BM Hawk maybe getting a foothold. That foot kind of gets cut straight off, but now Starlight looking to close out these last few members. BM Hawk, they're committing big, in for a penny, in for a pound, I suppose, but it pays off. The Nano boost off Protect picks up both supports on the side. Immediately turns out, finds Violetta, finishes him off entirely. Protect has got 3 kills through. Babel able to collect the kill credit for Sungun, and suddenly BM Hawk make that play happen out of nowhere.
Yeah, I mean, they survive against the EMP despite it being a 4-man catch as well. Just the Nano coming through from Papa Dog eventually with the 4-play surviving. Supercharger can always turn a fight. There's like no one left in Nano either, so they have to do it on to protect of all heroes, of all the players. See if they can get anything more done in 240. Again, the goal here is to get over towards C and get halfway through the distance. Decal's going to move over towards the Hanzo, so because both teams are actually playing this Orisa still, Hanzo's going to have pretty high value. You'd love to see Spear on something like a Soldier here as well, because there's not going to be any dive pressure from BM Hawk, and BM Hawk haven't changed, probably won't be looking to change for a while yet.
Just kind of hang inside. BM Hawk do want to preserve a good amount of momentum, just because that A-cap did actually take them quite a while in the end. About 45-30 seconds left on the clock when they capped, so getting a good time on B is important, and luckily they haven't been stalled up at all so far.
Decap. Cal rather missing with Decap on, although there it is, finds it. I guess a headshot required. 6v5 now, and the pulse is gone.
Sparrow lived as well. Decal later thereafter also living on quite low health, so BM Hawk just did a straight man advantage, weren't able to find a quick trade now. Supercharger committed it. Oh, Protect, for goodness sake. Just picking up a double as the Supercharger was getting committed, so Decal does not get any mileage out of it, and once again, BM Hawk, they just, even at a disadvantage, it was a straight up 5v6. They feel that there's an opportunity, they go for that opportunity, and ends up paying off.
It's a self-destruct that came through from Protect. I mean, that made all the difference there. 2 frags, Starlight down too many members here. Had a Supercharger going that last fight, but, you know, they just didn't have the players, and the difference is, okay, no Nano from Marca, too far away. Then it gets demeched, and SLT lose all their damage. When you lose Decal, you lose most of your damage, so they have to keep them alive. And speaking of damage, it's we Supercharger up from BM Hawk, plus the fact that Papa Dog still has this window.
I really like what that's doing for them as well.
Oh, it's done so good.
Absolutely huge from Babel. As the Supercharger rather fighting gets dealt with, but it doesn't matter. The cart positioning is already there, so BM Hawk can just kind of lean into the rest of their tools. They force the fight. Starlight, they have to try and dive, go for the Hail Mary. Not at all successful. Comfortable time left on the clock there as BM Hawk get it over the line.
I'm not going to lie, the more we look at this matchup, the more I think BM Hawk may just be able to get the 3-0. And
yeah,
possibly I've cursed that we will get a 3-1 as maybe Starlight can bring it back over towards Havana. As a reminder, Starlight did get that full hold versus T1 on Havana in the opening matchup. So, I mean, that was probably the only kind of saving grace for Starlight. Otherwise, you'd be looking at them as, you know, one of the bottom 2 teams in this group. And I think at this stage, with this 0-2 in the series versus BM, yeah, they kind of are the bottom 2 in this group. And it's very likely they exit this winless. It's going to be an 0-3 result for Starlight. They've started the season rough. Had to go up against T1 early. Had to go up against O2 Blast as well, where they couldn't put up any resistance. And now versus BM, who in some cases are kind of like O2 Blast light, because they have all those, you know, O2 Blast lone players on the team. It's just still not quite winnable enough. I think in the pre-show we're like, yeah, it's kind of winnable, but now you look at it and it's like, no, really it is. It's not really.
No, and I actually think Numbani was an even better tell of that because it was superficially close. The reason I say superficially close is you look at that and you go, yeah, all right, Starlight, like, it's not like the super one-sided thing where they got fully held, like, they got all the way to C, they just weren't able to get it quite far enough, but, like, actually you look at how that played out, like, a lot of stoppages, a lot of slowdown, the fights they were winning, they kind of had to muddle their way through to pull out an advantage. Meanwhile, when you see BM winning fights, like, there were multiple fights there on their attacking half where, like, they were at an unequivocal deficit. They'd lost members, and yet they see an opportunity to maybe convert something out of an ultimate. They go ahead, make the play, and it pays off for them, and they keep winning. And that's the difference. It really showed there. The fact that they had, 30 seconds, something like that on A, and then finish up C with still 2 minutes left on the clock. It really just goes to show the caliber there. But when all said and done, 2-0 is the lead, and unless something significant changes, I think we can fairly expect that 3-0. If that comes to pass, though, it all comes up after this break, so hang around for that. And welcome back then. As this point we're expecting it might be welcome back for the last time this week. BM are just kind of looking like the better of the two teams. So for everything that we said in the pre-game where there were those big unknowns, it's sort of like the fog of war has been cleared out now. We know exactly what the lay of the land is. And actually, yeah, no, it turns out BM are just significantly better than Starlight. And we kind of commented on it as well. It's like, in retrospect, it makes it really easy to just go, oh, well, duh, if you look at the rosters, of course, they're going to be better. But, you know, it wasn't actually that clear from the outset.
I think it's a lot of hopefulness that maybe Starlight could pull something through now that they get away from the T1s of the world and get away from the O2 Blast kind of matchups. So you're like, all right, well, now they're into more, like, you know, calmer waters. Can they get the boat across? And it's just still a little bit creaky, still a little bit leaky in there. Can't quite just stay afloat, as slowly sinking. It's 0-2 now, and like I said, Numbani decided, despite it being maybe deceptively close in the fact that they did get to see, they lose the majority of fights there, have way lower clutch factor. It's generally stronger coming through from the BM Hawk side of things. I don't really see any major change-ups that could change that result for SLT moving to the next map. And we're going to go to Havana, which is a very Orisa and Hanzo dominated map, and Babel's had by far the more dominant Hanzo gameplay. In fact, you can really look back at a lot of the games that we've had so far this season, especially this week and last week, where Hanzo's been the deciding factor. Hanzo, you have a good Hanzo in your team, that guy's hitting shots. Ardo was doing that in the last matchup now. Babel's doing it here. It really is the difference between winning and losing.
Kind of has been just the locus, if you will, of this meta. We have a sub here as well, November in over Decal. And yeah, Babel already over onto the Hanzo on the defense, naturally. Starlight, I assume they'll go over to one. I doubt they'll actually play a tour, but I'm also genuinely not going to count them out.
Taka November lineup here, which I don't even really remember November from, did he play week 1? Not too sure. It's mostly been Taka when Taka's been in.
Sky Fox.
They're going to go towards Orion. It's really interesting because Orion here is going to play well into an Orisa, but it will be hard to engage. The problem is there's too much elevation on Havana A. That being said, though, Yaho's starting on the ground, which is great for SLT. So if they actually wanted to play Orion, I think the Orion was more so just in case Starlight were going for a spawn hold, which has been quite rare this season, actually. Not a lot of teams, if that any at all, have gone for any of those spawn holds. So it's going to be the Orisa versus Orisa here. Both matchups pretty similar. Sanguina is on a brig, though, so Starlight should have the advantage as far as the backline goes.
As SLT, pretty standard push for this first little bit. See what the passenger play actually is to try and break this initial corner. Obviously, the spam damage down across these tanks is going to be a real central piece of that. Starlight are inevitably going to be on the back foot of this kind of starts to explode out towards the port itself. No one dead either way. It's both teams just jostling, with BM Hawk getting the better end of that jostling by quite a margin.
I mean, look at the ult charge here. All watching to Papa Dog. Both have the air matrix available. There's Babel doing a hell of a lot more damage. There's Dragon Strike nearly available as well.
Double window here. It's going to be Overwatch down first as the Immortality Field goes down. It's actually a bit of a wacky one that Sanguinar wasn't under Papa Dog's Immortality Field, but either way, Babel with that Dragon Strike having the early lead on that. I mean, it's not even necessarily what you look to pick up those sorts of kills, but it's just the fact that it was on the board there. First of all, shows how much more damage he was doing during the fights, and then even just collecting the kills during the fight as well.
I mean, even just look at it now with all those just being in there for the later frags, but it's Babel that sets it all up. Dragon Strike collecting initial frag to Sungun and just the damage coming on through, and then Babel is heavily outpacing Taka, or at least Taka will now have the Dragon Strike available. But you have to remember, the Dragon Strike is such an important ultimate to counter out the Ant Matrices that the fact that Babel has it almost at the same time as both of the maps is kind of wild. Papa Dog is going to be that much closer because BM Hawk has won the previous one, and Dragon Strike from the attacking side now.
All right. At least buys them a little bit of space to start playing for the card again, but BM Hawk now in position to immediately push that back. The Supercharger rig part of that. Nice kill by November onto Sanguinar. Follow-ups as well as Taka just pops one out. Now a second one as well, really getting maximum mileage out of that Transcendence, and now on an absolute tear as BM Hawk's position is completely broken. So Starlight should be able to finish the rest of this one up, and likely to actually get a cap off this as well.
Well done by Taka there. I mean, the Dragon Strike to open things up and get SLT onto the payload again. And after that, they can actually get a fight going. Attacker gets quite a lot done, a lot of frags. Be a final touch from Aldo and instantly taken down.
This is a bit brazen. It actually works out because they end up getting a trade there. That's a big something in all seriousness. Babel as well.
Okay, here we go.
Huge angle. That's absolutely nuts. I mean, getting the one on Taka is great. Getting the second one on Maka is bonkers. Even without getting the Dragon Strike, the Fire Letifies that. Nice
that
ult to force Babel into the self-destruct. A bit of a cute passage of play there, but BM Hawk would actually maybe getting this done on the defense. The Immortality Field getting a little bit of work done for Overwatch, but not quite enough to really save this position. And now without the main tank anymore, they're going to have to abandon the spot. That's tough. That was so nearly a cap.
Yeah, I know. That's just BM Hawk coming on through there. It's really kind of thematic that Taka's domination is ended by Babel getting that last shot onto him, getting that kill, and then Babel himself popping off. So as I said before we even got onto Havana here, the difference in the Hanzos and how much output the Hanzos have are really just dictating the success of the teams. As SLT will now go for possibly their final attempt. I mean, this could end in a full hold, which is really wild considering that Starlight started to pick up a lot of momentum.
I mean, that's the crazy thing, right? Like, to go from what almost looked like, I don't want to say guaranteed cap, but even then when you remember that, like, although went out for the touch, instantly died, and then Yahoo goes out afterwards, goes down to about half health before that big play came through from Babel. I mean, it's stunning that this might be a holdout now. 5 seconds left on the clock. Starlight just kind of have to go for it. They got nothing but this window, but hold on, a hot sink. They found Sanguinar and all those pulse bombs. November finds his mark. Mac is down to the trade, although killed as well. Here we go, though. BM Hawk, they're still in it. Just barely. Papa Dog and Babel, really the nexus of this defense. But honestly, that might just be enough. There's just about no one left on this part. Starlight, Violet is the last person there. Now it's November. Takes out Protect, but there's still Babel. There's still Papa Dog. And that's enough to hold it out for the respawners to come in. And that's going to be a full hold.
I can't believe it, dude. Babel and Papa Dog, like 2 versus 3, 2 versus 4 even. Get this clutching. Okay, let's be real as well. Protect actually got a kill into Overwatch as the Baby Diva, which is pretty wild. Dies. But Papa Dog and Babel hold on strong, and then they just lean into the defensive spawn advantage. Yahoo comes through with his ball. SLT try their best to re-engage, and November's the last one of the payload, realistically speaking, on that trace. It just isn't going to be enough, though. I did not expect the BM Hawk were going to get that clutch, but it's twice in the road, dude. It is when Starlight won that initial fight, that got them the roll through towards the end of the A point, and then BM Hawk came through for the final contest. And then right at the end as well, when BM Hawk started to lose all these members, but Papa Dog and Babel off the back of an Ant Matrix, when their numbers were not good, BM Hawk just pulled through a miracle win.
I mean, that's wild. Like, weirdly enough, I want to put a little bit of attention onto the pilot form Diva there. Not that it was like a piece of playmaking, but like the impact that actually has on those low body count fights is like, usually you think, okay, pilot form Diva, easy pickings, it's gonna die. But when you've got more immediate threats in play, like Papa Dog and Babel, what Protect actually is there? It's a little bit of extra damage. Like, don't bulk at that pistol. A couple of shots from that, especially headshots, can drop a low health member really quick. And it also takes attention. If you want to finish off Protect at that point, that's attention not being paid to someone like Babel or Papa Dog. So that's like the extra little difference there that pilot form Diva makes. Not to overstate it necessarily, but it's also important that we don't understate it.
BM Hawk starting through on towards the Babs end here, and that's just going to be the difference because Starlight have to be aware that if they go Babs end, they're vulnerable to dive, so they have to start over towards the brig. Whereas BM Hawk can kind of play whatever they want. That's the attacker's advantage, at least in the opening neutral. Sanguinar versus Maka to get the first Ant Matrix, and it will be Sanguinar nearly 50%, well, nearly twice as fast rather in front of Maka. Also looking at Babel versus Taka's damage. This time Taka on the defense is fighting a lot more value.
Starlight at this point really backs against the wall. That's an important find early on. The Immortality Field kind of forced to be deployed. That was a little bit touch and go for a second, but it ends up paying off big for Starlight. They're going to be able to collect up a good number of kills. This also charges up a few crucial ultimates as well. You'll note that obviously Taka miles ahead of Babel on the Dragon Strike.
Yeah, I think that's just the defensive Hanzo there where you have to play, where you get the openings for the angles to start with, and BM Hawk have to fight for those angles, and Babel has to play a bit more defensively. Pretty much exactly what we saw the other side around when BM Hawk were defending and Starlight were attacking. Taka was also very far behind. Notably though, we haven't seen the Ant Matrix being played in, so Starlight want to fight without having to use an ultimate, and BM Hawk don't respond with anything. Here we go, the first ultimate being expended. Beamhawk will respect it, they back out. And they're going to have that advantage now, at least in the terms of the Ant Matrix. But what you are going to see is that Taka is going to pop down that Dragon Strike as soon as Sanguinar pops the window down.
Absolutely undeniable. Actually, that goes a little bit more aggressively than he needs to, I think. That's going to force out an Immortality Field here. Protector's still low, though, so that's an important window here, potentially. As I say that, Overwatch and Sungin immediately drops. A little bit of mileage out of that supercharger. Projectiles get taken out by Violetta. Will even find Babel with the self-destruct. It's a lot of members down, but BM Hawk have the closer respawn here. That maybe does it, but the only members currently alive are the supports.
We do have November there as well, so November's kind of keeping pace. If it wasn't for the fact that November on the Tracer is available, I think BM Hawk would happily and easily take control of the payload. They will now because the tanks are respawned. So we also wait for the Starlight tanks to come in towards play. They have a supercharge replenish, which is a very important ultimate for this defense. So see if Starlight can get a lot of value off that.
And that's the crucial thing there. That extra time that it took BM Hawk to get onto the payload is time that Starlight can use to start reinforcing. They still have to stop this payload and win a fight here. So if Starlight just went out, sorry, if BM Hawk rather just went out right here, then it doesn't matter in the end. But for what it's worth, already some ultimates deployed. Naturally, the supercharger dealt with. Sungyun is still quite low as well, with the Immortality Field still on cooldown, as now they've managed to wait out the Amplification Matrix. BM Hawk can get aggressive. Sungyun's down. November, Violetta, the dominoes fall quick smart. I was expecting maybe they would try and pile on the pressure with a tempo Transcendence. They don't even need it. The window is an afterthought. The Transcendence is going to be a victory lap as they get the cart over the line. Unsurprising result there after the full hold, to be sure, but even at the end of it there, BM Hawk really just flexing and showing their prowess.
I think a lot of this matchup has just been, you know, a bit of a token slowdown from the Starlight players where they can, you know, get a couple of fight wins, maybe stall the progress of BM Hawk. But BM Hawk have been, by and large, the more superior team today across the board. BM Hawk have kind of dominated on various maps, especially on Oasis, by the way, where it was a clean 2-0. Numbani was a bit closer because we got towards the end of the map, but again, that was a little bit deceptive. Havana here, full hold, ends up not being a cap coming through from the Starlight side at all, and that's coming through from the BM Hawk. Their ability to just clutch on out. I mean, they just won fights that looked like they were about to lose, and they forced their will upon the game and won those fights.
It looks like, I know it sounds really forehead to be like, oh yeah, they just fragged out and won fights, but like, yeah, that was what a lot of it was, and like when you talk about a team just being like 1-to-1 better than another, actually that's one of the best particular metrics of it, right? Like when teams aren't so closely matched that you're looking at these sort of micro plays and these little differences in, you know, maybe how ultimate macro plays out or little positional things, like that's where you start to look at those things. And imagine like this, it's like, yeah, one team is better enough than the other one that they could just kind of pop off and win fights, and the other team just not have the same capacity to do that. That isn't to discredit Starlight, because we saw a couple of hot moments out of the likes of Taka and although, but it still wasn't anywhere, you know, anything like to the extremity and the consistency that BM Hawk were able to pull off, especially out of Babel in particular. But I actually want to highlight Protect as a notable member there. A lot of differences being made, some very impactful self-destructs, not necessarily just in terms of kills, but the positioning being created, a lot of really important damage mitigation. There was often still in fights very, very late, still pulling a lot of weight. So I would also draw a lot of attention to that. Like, it's not just the DPSs popping off, it's tanks playing to an extreme degree that is allowing these DPSs to continue to pop off.
We said his name already, but play of the match here is going to go over towards the Hanzo prowess shown by Babel today, and it is the day of Hanzo. It is the day of that projectile DPS position Aro got in our first match. Babel collected here as well, and it's just one of those kind of situations where Babel, much like Aro, imposed his will on towards the game and just had too dominant of a performance to ignore. The Hanzo diff was fun. I mean, let's be clear as well, Taka did kind of show up on Havana and had some good moments there, but at the end of the day as well, you have to acknowledge that Babel was dominating all across the board, all maps. Numbani, great Hanzo in there as well. Hanzo's making a huge difference here, massive impact, and Babel is the driver of that car.
Yeah, very, very straightforward, and we've kind of been talking about this, you know, ever since like the end of the first week, where it became very clear that like Hanzo is just kind of this locus point for the meta right now in Korean contenders specifically. So like Hanzo difference is going to be something that is probably going to come up a lot when we're talking about not necessarily just these MVPs, but even just talking about DPS differences and like where differences fell in terms of why a match went one way or another. So with that all being said and done, that's a whole week just kind of tied it away again. A lot of 3-0s across the board this week. I think we had the 1-3-1 yesterday, but aside from that, taking a look back across tonight, of course, Talon, the very expected 3-0 against Incendia, BM Hawk, the slightly less expected 3-0 against Starlight. The reason we say that is like at the beginning, like I said, there was still some fog of war. There were unknowns. There were questions that could potentially still be answered. The question has been answered overwhelmingly in favor of BM Hawk now.
Yep, 100%. And that is going to give BM Hawk the advantage in the 2-2, which probably will lock in. And in fact, it will guaranteed their position in third seed. They cannot drop below. They can't improve it. They're going to be locked in. So top seed for play-ins, regardless of what happens now. JNGK Starlight Gaming fighting for survival in 4th and 5th seed. And you know what? Equal map score as well. Not that the map score means anything now, as whoever just wins next week's match simply stays in the season, and the loser will exit. So Incendia, I believe, looking at that scoreline.
Yeah, they're Dunskies.
Oh.
So even if they go 3-0 against GC Busan, that puts them tied for map differential, in which case the head-to-head kicks in, and they lost to WGS.
Just noticed that. So there it is. So actually, unfortunately, that means Incendia Evolution's run-through is done. And now you look back under that context, and you're like, yo, if they won even one map, I'm not talking about the previous match versus Talon, because that's quite difficult. But if they got one extra map somewhere else, let's say, for example, versus GC Busan, or maybe they took WGS to a map 5 instead of just a map 4, that could be their season maybe still within their own hands. I'll be honest, though. They would still have to 3-0 CC next week,
which I don't
is not going to really happen.
No.
But it's more so like, you know, give themselves the opportunity to still save their season. Whereas now it's kind of like next week you kind of just have to play for funsies or play to kind of spoil CC's season instead.
Bit of a tough break, so as we're kind of settling in, just seeing where these last few standings are going to fall. Obviously, as we come across to next week, we have that knockout match now that the stage has been set for in Group A. We've got JNGK versus Starlight Gaming. Then we've got GC Busan versus Talon. That's actually a surprisingly important one, more for CC's case than anything else, because technically, right now, GC Busan is still ahead of CC in the standings, despite losing the head-to-head because of map differential. You can assume that they're going to lose against Talon. If you go even further and assume an 0-3 loss and you assume a 3-0 win for CC, then that completely shifts up those two standings, and we'll see those teams settle in those positions. The map differential is the only thing that could rescue GC Busan at this point. I don't know that they're likely to beat Talon. If they do, they're just straight up second. No two ways about that. I don't actually think there's anything CC could do to shift up the map differential there. I could be slightly wrong about that, but point still being, if GC Busan can steal maps off Talon, first of all, slows down Talon's thunderous roll, also means GC Busan could actually still hold on to that second place finish, depending on how CC's match against Incendia goes. If they drop a couple there, then GC Busan are in for a chance.
Yeah, I mean, GC Busan currently are leading by a +2, right? So anything is possible at that stage.
Yeah.
And, they would have to take down a team that is so far flawless. It's O2 Blast and Talon Esports, both miles ahead of the rest of the competition. Or, you know, definitely in the case of Talon, maybe not so much in O2 because T1 are just trailing by that one extra map, and that one extra map they lost to Starlight, so they kind of wish they did win that a little bit early on. Although, to be honest with you, T1 versus O2 next week will be the highlighted match.
Yeah.
That is going to be the title for Group A, and easily the most important game. So, I mean, a lot to look forward to. I have no more thoughts for this week. I've enjoyed myself for week number 4, and I'm ready to take on week 5 for the final week of regular season.
Yeah, where I think we're really going to start to see some important shakeouts, and that's also to say nothing of the fact that we're going to know who is going to be facing off against who as we come in towards the playoffs. So now if you are a team like BM, where your third place finish is completely locked in, you're looking across to Group B with bated breath, waiting to see, is it going to be GC or is it going to be CC? Either way, it's going to be a tough matchup for them, but that's still a couple of weeks away. And for this week, we are also done. Thank you very much for joining us once again. We'll see you next week for the final week of the group stages. Catch you then.